Clause 17. Zahara Ellington Price's voice cut through the mahogany-paneled silence like a blade through silk. She stood at the far end of the Helixon Group emergency board table, not seated, her black blazer dress sharp enough to draw blood, medium heels planted on London marble as if she owned every inch beneath them. Kyungrae Soh looked up from his presentation slide. Q4 profitability, 23% shareholder return, and met her gaze across 12 feet of polished wood and nervous board members. His charcoal Tom Ford suit didn't wrinkle. His expression didn't crack, but something in his jaw tightened. "Director Price," he said, voice smooth as aged whiskey. "We're discussing quarterly performance. Clause 17 of the Aurora Ethics Capital Investment Agreement," Zahara repeated, not louder, but with the kind of precision that made 4 white directors shift in their Italian leather chairs. "The one your legal team signed 8 months ago. The one that gives me authority to call this exact meeting when corporate practices directly contradict stated ESG commitments." Park Ji-hoon, Helixon CFO, leaned forward with a smile that never reached his calculating eyes. "With respect, Ms. Price, our compliance department has reviewed..." She opened her laptop without breaking eye contact with Kyungmin. "Your HIV medication Virexol costs $2 to manufacture in Mumbai. You sell it for $400 in Nairobi. 17 patients died last month at Kenyatta National Hospital, waiting for a drug that costs less than a cup of coffee to produce." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Kyungmin set down his presentation clicker. "Our pricing follows international pharmaceutical standards across 47 jurisdictions. Your pricing follows profit maximization." Zahara finally moved, 3 steps forward, her wavy black hair catching the cold London morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. "And my $340 million in invested capital follows ethics." The math no longer adds up, Kyungmin Soh. Not financially, not morally, not in any version of capitalism I'm willing to fund. Silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind where decisions worth billions hang in the air like guillotine blades. Director Chambers cleared his throat. "Surely we can discuss contract modifications through proper channels." "Contracts change," Zahara said, gaze still locked on Kyungmin. "People don't resurrect." For the first time in 7 years as CEO, Kyungmin Soh felt something he'd trained himself never to feel in boardrooms: genuine uncertainty. This woman wasn't performing outrage for shareholder letters. She wasn't positioning for a better deal. She believed every word she was saying, and she had the financial weapon to back it up. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked. "Co-leadership of a new ethics and transformation committee. 6 months, you and me. Every pricing decision, every supply chain choice, every contract that touches essential medications in developing markets. Real reform, or I pull Aurora's stake and trigger the domino effect with every other activist fund watching this room right now." Ji-hoon's face went pale beneath his immaculate hair gel. 3 board members started whispering. The Bloomberg terminal in the corner blinked with a breaking news alert. Aurora Ethics confronts Helixon on drug pricing in closed-door London meeting. Kyungmin stood, 6'1" of tailored control and family legacy burden. He walked around the table, not away from her, toward her, until only 3 feet separated them. 6 months, he said quietly, just for her, though everyone heard it in the marble echo. Joint authority. Every decision requires consensus between us. Agreed. And if we can't agree? Her eyes, warm gold and absolutely uncompromising, didn't waver. Then you'll learn what it feels like when principles cost more than profit margins. He extended his hand. Corporate etiquette, formal closure. She shook it, firm, quick, professional. "Work is work," he said. "Nothing personal." Zahara's lips curved, not quite a smile, more like a warning. "Agreed. But if you're lying to yourself about the severity of this situation, I will be personally impersonal enough to dismantle this company piece by piece and sleep soundly afterward." She released his hand, closed her laptop with a decisive click, and walked out. 6 men automatically moved aside. She didn't thank them. Didn't need to. The door closed. Kyungmin stared at it for 3 full seconds before turning back to his board. "Vote on the committee structure," he said. "Now." The vote was 5-4. Razor thin. The committee was approved. And somewhere between the handshake and the door closing, Kyungmin realized he'd just agreed to spend 6 months in close quarters with the only person in 20 years who'd made him question whether control and righteousness were the same thing. If you've ever wondered whether love and power can coexist at the very top, where every decision is scrutinized, every gesture analyzed, and every truth costs something, subscribe now. Because what happens next isn't just a business negotiation. It's 2 impossible leaders discovering that the most dangerous contract they'll ever sign is the one written in brutal honesty. And we're just getting started. Marcus Chen found Zahara in the hotel business lounge 40 minutes later, second espresso already empty, typing so fast her red Mont Blanc pen rolled off the marble table. "You just declared war on a $15 billion chaebol," Marcus said, catching the pen before it hit the floor, lowering himself into the opposite chair with the practiced ease of someone who'd been her CFO and closest confidant for 12 years. His salt and pepper hair was immaculate despite the 6 a.m. scramble. His gold-rimmed glasses caught the light. "Want to tell me the exit strategy?" "The exit strategy is not needing one." Zahara didn't look up from her screen. "We have the leverage. The Financial Times already has the Nairobi death toll. Bloomberg's running the stock impact analysis. ESG funds control 42% of Helix's institutional capital." Marcus set the pen down carefully. "And if CO calls your bluff? Accepts the divestment, spins it as radical activism, waits for the next quarterly earnings to prove profitability trumps principles? Then 17 more people die next month, and the month after. And we'll have proven that ethical investing is performative theater." Her fingers finally stopped. She looked up. "That's not a world I'm interested in building, Marcus." He studied her, the slight tension in her jaw, the way her left hand kept touching the empty spot on her ring finger, where her mother's ring usually sat when she wasn't in combat mode. "This is about more than drug pricing." "Of course it is." Zahara closed the laptop. "It's about whether systems can change from inside or if we just burn them down and start over. Kyungmin Soh inherited his father's empire after a corruption scandal that should have destroyed the family. He rebuilt it. That takes either genuine integrity or world-class manipulation. I need to know which one I'm dealing with. And if it's manipulation, then I dismantle him systematically." She said it without heat. Statement of fact. "What are you not telling me?" Marcus sighed, adjusted his glasses. "Park Ji-hoon reached out through back channels yesterday, before your meeting. Offered Aurora a sweetheart deal on preferred shares if we reconsidered our aggressive stance on operational matters." Zahara's expression went very still. "He tried to buy us off, before we even made the formal demand. Which means he knew it was coming. Which means someone inside Aurora leaked our strategy." She was already opening her laptop again, pulling up internal communication logs. "Who knew about the Nairobi hospital data before the board meeting?" "You, me, our junior analyst Rebecca, and the external consultant we hired for the supply chain deep dive." Marcus leaned forward. "But Z, here's the thing. If Ji-hoon is playing games this early, this committee co-leadership isn't just about drug pricing. It's about control of Helix's strategic direction, and that makes you and CO targets." "Good," Zahara said softly. "I do my best work when someone's trying to destroy me." Marcus recognized that tone. He'd heard it 6 years ago when a previous fund had tried to force her out during the financial crisis. She'd ended up with a board seat and the CEO's resignation. "Just don't forget, targets sometimes get hit." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. "Director Price." Kyungmin's voice, even more controlled than in the boardroom, if that were possible. "Our first committee meeting is scheduled for Monday morning, 9 a.m., Helix's headquarters, Seoul. I'm sending a plane. My assistant will coordinate details." "I'll book my own flight," Zahara said immediately. The optics of showing up on a commercial airline after publicly challenging a CEO suggest either grandstanding or poor logistical planning. Was that amusement in his voice? Neither serves our shared objectives. The plane leaves Heathrow tomorrow at 2 p.m. Bring your CFO if it makes you feel safer. I don't need to feel safe. I need to feel effective. Then we're aligned on priorities. A pause. The patients who died at Kenyatta Hospital, I want their files. All of them. Before Monday. Zahara sat straighter. Why? Because you were right. The admission was quiet. Costly. The math doesn't add up, and I don't make decisions based on incomplete data. If we're doing this, we do it with full transparency. Starting now. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone. Did he just, agree with you? No. Zahara was already pulling up the Nairobi hospital files, attaching them to a secure encrypted email. He agreed with the data. That's different. But it's a start. She hit send. Across London, in a penthouse suite overlooking Hyde Park, Kyungrae Soh watched the email arrive on his phone. 17 patient files. 17 names. Ages ranging from 23 to 56. Occupations: teacher, nurse, taxi driver, student, mother of 3, engineer, shop owner. Not statistics. People. He opened the first file, read it in full, then the second. By the fourth, his jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. His mother's voice echoed from his childhood. The SEO family survives by being more perfect than their accusers. His father had failed that standard, had taken shortcuts, had prioritized quarterly returns over the kind of meticulous ethics that kept empires standing for generations. Kyungmin had spent 15 years proving he wasn't his father. But somewhere in the expansion into African markets, the aggressive pricing strategies, the focus on shareholder value, when had he stopped checking whether perfection and righteousness were the same thing? He forwarded the files to his executive assistant with a single instruction. Schedule me with Dr. Mbeki at Kenyatta Hospital next week. In person. Private. No press. Then he poured himself 2 fingers of Hibiki whiskey, stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Thames, and thought about a woman in a black blazer dress who'd walked into his boardroom and asked him a question no one had dared ask in 7 years. What are you willing to sacrifice to be right? The heat hit like a physical wall when they stepped off the plane at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Zahara had been to Nairobi 3 times before, twice for fun due diligence, once for a healthcare infrastructure conference. But it always felt like coming home to a place she'd never lived. Kyungmin emerged from the jet stairs behind her, somehow looking unfairly composed despite 16 hours of travel. His white dress shirt rolled to the elbows, charcoal trousers with a belt that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. No tie. Concession to the humidity. His security detail fanned out with practiced efficiency. We're 20 minutes from the hospital, Zahara said, not looking at him, checking her phone for the latest correspondence with Dr. Mbeki's office. He's expecting us at 2. No cameras, no official statements. You wanted transparency. This is what it looks like. I know what transparency looks like. Kyungmin's tone was neutral, but something in it made her finally turn. He was staring at the airport, the chaos of taxis and buses, families reuniting, vendors selling roasted maize and chapati, a woman in a bright yellow kanga carrying a sleeping child on her back. Not with the usual expat bewilderment, with recognition. You've been here before, Zahara said. 8 years ago, when we first entered the East African market. I toured facilities, met with health ministers, signed contracts that looked perfect on paper. He picked up his single leather briefcase. No entourage, no assistants. He'd insisted on coming alone, and started walking toward the waiting SUV. I didn't visit the hospitals where patients actually used our medications. Didn't ask what $400 meant in an economy where doctors earn $600 a month. Zahara followed. And now? Now I know better. He opened the car door himself, waved off the security trying to do it for him. Let's go see what my ignorance cost. Kenyatta National Hospital was organized chaos. Nurses moving with purposeful speed, patients waiting on benches and hallways, the smell of antiseptic and suffering and stubborn hope. Dr. Joseph Mbeki met them in a small administrative office, away from the main wards. A tall man in his 50s with kind eyes and hands that looked like they'd held too many dying patients. "Director Price," he said, embracing Zahara with genuine warmth. "Thank you for coming. And bringing..." He turned to Kyungmin, expression cooling several degrees. "Mr. Soh." "Doctor." Kyungmin bowed slightly, Korean respect meeting African reality. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." Dr. Mbeki gestured to the chairs. They sat. He didn't waste time. 17 deaths in 6 weeks. Could have been 7 if we'd had access to Virexol at a price our patients could afford. Even with government subsidies, insurance, charity programs, $400 per monthly treatment is a death sentence in this economy. He opened a folder. Sarah Wonjiru, 32. Teacher, 3 children. She chose to pay their school fees instead of her medication for 2 months. By the time she came back, the virus had progressed beyond what we could control with cheaper alternatives. Zahara had read these files, lived with them for 3 weeks. But hearing Dr. Mbeki's voice crack slightly on 3 children was different. Kyungmin was very still. "May I see her file?" Dr. Mbeki slid it across the desk. Kyungmin opened it, read every page, then looked up. "Your hospital requested a compassionate pricing exception 4 months ago, through official channels. Our regional director denied it, citing precedent concerns and market sustainability. I never saw the request. And if you had?" Dr. Mbeki's voice was quiet, but sharp as a scalpel. "I would like to say I would have approved it immediately." Kyungmin set the file down carefully. "But truthfully, I don't know. Because 4 months ago, I was approving dozens of regional decisions based on quarterly projections and shareholder expectations, not on whether teachers named Sarah Wonjiru had to choose between their children's education and their own lives. That ignorance is inexcusable. It doesn't matter that I didn't know. I should have known." Silence. "Doctor." Mbeki studied him for a long moment. "Why are you here, Mr. Soh? Really. Not the corporate responsibility answer. The true one." Kyungmin glanced at Zahara. She said nothing. This was his answer to give. "My father destroyed our family company through corruption and negligence 20 years ago." Kyungmin's voice was steady, but something beneath it wasn't. "I rebuilt it by being more careful, more ethical, more perfect than anyone could criticize. But somewhere in that perfection, I stopped asking whether I was being righteous or just protected. Director Price asked me a question last week that I couldn't answer. Whether profitability and ethics could coexist, or if I was just telling myself a comfortable story while people died. I'm here because I need to know the answer, and because if the answer is no, I need to change it." Dr. Mbeki looked at Zahara. "You believe him?" "I believe he believes himself right now," Zahara said carefully. "The question is whether that belief survives contact with quarterly earnings calls and shareholder pressure. That's what the next 6 months will prove. Then I will tell you what I told the last pharmaceutical executive who visited with cameras and promises," Dr. Mbeki said, leaning forward. "Patients do not need your guilt. They do not need your press releases. They need affordable medication delivered consistently. If you can do that, I will thank you. If you cannot, I will make sure every doctor in East Africa knows which companies prioritize profit over lives. Am I clear?" "Perfectly," Kyungmin said. "Good." Dr. Mbeki stood. "Now come. I want you to meet some of the patients who survived because their families sold everything they owned to afford your medicine. I want you to look them in the eyes and understand what $400 actually costs." The next 2 hours were brutal. Not because anyone was cruel. Because everyone was kind. Patients thanked Kyungmin for making the drug at all. Families expressed gratitude that their children were alive, even as they described selling ancestral land, pulling kids from school, borrowing from loan sharks at interest rates that would take generations to repay. Zahara watched Kyungmin's face carefully. watched it not change, but watched his hands clench slightly behind his back when a grandmother described choosing which grandchild's treatment to prioritize. Watched his jaw tighten when a young man showed him the medical bills that had bankrupted 3 families. By the time they left the hospital, the sun was setting over Nairobi in bands of orange and gold. Their driver was waiting. Kyungmin didn't get in the car. "I need to walk," he said quietly. Zahara dismissed the driver, told him to circle back in 30 minutes. They walked in silence for 3 blocks, Kyungmin's security detail keeping a discreet distance. Finally, he stopped, turned to her. "How do you do this?" His voice was raw in a way she'd never heard from him. "Look at that suffering and not just burn everything down? How do you believe systems can change when the system is built on people like me making decisions in boardrooms 5,000 miles away from the consequences?" Zahara looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since the London boardroom. Saw past the perfect suit and controlled expression to the man underneath, who'd just spent 2 hours understanding exactly what his ignorance had cost. "I do it," she said slowly, "because burning things down is easy. Building something better is hard. And I'm not interested in easy. Even when the system protects people like me and punishes people like Dr. Mbeki for telling the truth. Especially then." She stepped closer. "You asked why I'm here, Kyungmin-si. Not just in Nairobi. Why I care enough to threaten your company instead of just divesting and moving on to the next investment. You want the real answer?" He nodded. "Because 6 years ago, I almost quit." The admission surprised her even as she said it. She never talked about this. "I was 38. I'd just made partner at a major fund, and the senior partners systematically undermined every deal I brought, questioned my competence in meetings, made it clear that a black woman in their boardroom was tolerated, not valued. I was 1 week from resigning when Marcus reminded me that quitting meant they won, that the system stayed exactly the same. So I stayed, documented everything. Built in case so airtight, they had to either fire me and face a lawsuit or give me what I'd earned. They gave me what I'd earned. 2 years later, I left anyway and built Aurora." Kyungmin was watching her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. "Why tell me this?" "Because you asked how I do it." Zahara held his gaze. "I do it by remembering that systems are made of people, and people can choose to change. You chose to get on that plane. You chose to sit with Dr. Mbeki and not make excuses. You chose to walk these blocks instead of hiding in a luxury hotel. Those are choices. They matter." "Do they?" His voice was almost a whisper. "If Sarah Wanjiru is still dead? If 17 families are still destroyed?" "No," Zahara said honestly. "They don't resurrect anyone, but they prevent the next 17. If you mean them, if you follow through. If you're willing to sacrifice profit margins and shareholder complaints and quarterly earnings targets for something that won't show up on a balance sheet. And if I'm not?" He was standing very close now, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of legacy and expectation, and maybe, finally, doubt. "Then I pull Aurora's investment, trigger the domino effect, and watch your company struggle while I sleep soundly." She said it without malice. Statement of fact. "But I don't think that's who you are. I think you're terrified that you might be your father after all. And I think you'll do anything to prove you're not, even if it costs you everything you built." Kyungmin stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, laughed. Short, sharp, almost bitter. "You're dangerous." "Yes," Zahara agreed. "Are you?" He didn't answer, just turned and started walking back toward where their car was circling. But when they got in, he gave the driver new instructions. "Kenyatta Hospital, Dr. Mbeki's office. Tell him we're coming back tomorrow. No meetings. I want to understand how their purchasing system works, what the real bottlenecks are. And I want to talk to every patient who's willing to talk to me." Zahara felt something shift in her chest. Not trust. Not yet. But possibility. "Okay," she said quietly. They spent the drive back to the hotel in silence. But when Kyungmin got out, he turned back, leaned into the open car door and said, "Thank you for making me come here. I would have found 1,000 reasons not to. Corporate reasons. Logical reasons. You didn't let me. That matters too." He closed the door before she could respond. Zahara sat in the back of the car, watching the Nairobi traffic blur past, and thought about a man who'd just thanked her for destroying his comfortable ignorance, and wondered what exactly she'd started. Seoul was winter-sharp and modern as a blade when they landed 4 days later. Zahara had been to South Korea twice before, both times for tech investment conferences, but never to Helixon headquarters. The building was a steel and glass monument to recovered reputation, 38 floors of immaculate architecture in Gangnam, the kind of structure that said, "We survived scandal and built something irreproachable from the ashes." Marcus met her in the lobby, looking unusually tense. "We have a problem." "Only one?" Zahara adjusted her charcoal blazer, the red Mont Blanc pen clipped in her interior pocket like a talisman. "That's a good day. Park Ji-hoon leaked to Korean media that you and Seo spent 4 days alone together in Nairobi." Marcus showed her his tablet. 3 major business papers, all with variations of the same headline. "Helixon CEO and activist investor. Too close for comfort?" "We weren't alone," Zahara said, skimming the articles with growing irritation. "We were in hospitals, with doctors, interviewing patients and supply chain managers," which the articles mention in paragraph 6, after spending 5 paragraphs speculating about whether your unprecedented joint oversight role represents a conflict of interest. Marcus lowered his voice as a group of Helixon executives passed through the lobby, not quite subtly staring. "Z, this is exactly what I warned about. They're going to use any perceived personal connection to undermine the committee's credibility." "Then we don't give them one," Zahara said flatly. "Where's the committee meeting?" 15th floor, conference room A. "But Seo wants to see you first." 38th floor, his private office. Zahara's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Didn't say. Just sent the message through official channels 20 minutes ago." She considered refusing. Considered the optics of being summoned to the CEO's private office on her first day of joint oversight. Then considered that games of perception were exactly what people like Ji-hoon wanted them to play instead of doing actual work. "Fine," she said. 38th floor, 5 minutes. Then we're in the committee meeting on time and pretending this conversation never happened. The executive elevator was all mirrors and subtle lighting. Zahara watched her reflection rise through the building. Black blazer, minimal gold jewelry, hair pulled into a low bun that meant pure business. The face looking back at her was the one she'd perfected over 15 years. Confident without arrogance, firm without aggression, the kind of expression that made men twice her age unconsciously sit straighter. The 38th floor was hushed elegance. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, modern Korean art that probably cost more than most people's houses, and a receptionist who bowed with perfect formality. "Director Price, Mr. Seo is expecting you." The office door was already open. Kyungmin stood with his back to the door, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city. He'd changed since Nairobi. Navy suit, perfectly tailored, hair styled with just enough precision to look effortless. When he turned, his expression was carefully neutral. "Close the door," he said quietly. Zahara did, but stayed near it. The optics of private meetings before our first official committee session are terrible. Whatever this is, make it fast. Ji-hoon is trying to manufacture a scandal. Kyungmin's voice was flat, professional, but something underneath it was furious. The media leaks, the speculation about our relationship, and it's designed to undermine the committee before we even start real work. Obviously, Zahara said. So we ignore it, deliver results, and make the story about policy changes instead of personality politics. It's not that simple. Kyungmin moved closer, stopped a careful 6 feet away. Corporate distance, nothing that could be photographed as intimate. In Korean business culture, even the appearance of impropriety can destroy years of credibility. My father's scandal wasn't just about the corruption. It was about the perception that he'd prioritized personal relationships over corporate integrity. If Ji-hoon succeeds in painting our collaboration as anything other than purely professional, then we prove him wrong by being purely professional. Zahara cut him off, sharper than intended. Unless there's something unprofessional you're planning that I should know about. Kyungmin's jaw tightened. No. Then we're fine. Are we? He took another step forward, close enough now that she could see the shadows under his eyes, the evidence of someone who hadn't slept well since Nairobi. Because I've spent 4 days thinking about Sarah Wanjiru and 16 other people whose names I now know. I've reviewed every pricing decision my regional directors made for the last 3 years. And I've realized that if I actually implement the changes needed to prevent more deaths, I'm going to lose at least 30% of my board's support. Maybe more. Zahara studied him. And you're telling me this because I need you to understand what you're asking. His voice dropped even quieter, intense enough that she felt it like physical pressure. If we do this right, if we actually change Helixon's pricing model, restructure supply chains, prioritize access over profit margins, it's going to cost billions in short-term shareholder value. Ji-hoon and his faction will use that to challenge my leadership. They'll claim I'm being manipulated by activist investors. They'll try to remove me. Yes, Zahara said calmly. They will. Are you asking for permission to back down? No. He said it immediately, almost fiercely. I'm asking if you're prepared to defend decisions that hurt your own fund's quarterly returns. Because Aurora has $340 million invested in Helixon. If we crater the stock price reforming operations, you lose money. Your investors question your judgment. Maybe you lose your position. Zahara felt something unexpected. Respect. He wasn't trying to protect himself. He was making sure she understood the stakes. I've already run those numbers, she said quietly. Worst case scenario, Aurora takes a 22% hit in Helixon holdings over the next 2 quarters. Best case, we take a 12% hit, but position the company for long-term sustainable growth that triples value over 5 years. Either way, I've already prepared my board. They know what I'm doing and why. And they approved? Kyungmin looked genuinely surprised. Not all of them. Zahara allowed herself a small, sharp smile. One director accused me of emotionally driven decision-making. Another said I was sacrificing fiduciary responsibility for social justice optics. I told them both that if they couldn't handle investments that prioritize long-term systemic change over quarterly profit margins, they could resign. One did. Good riddance. Kyungmin stared at her. You fired a board member over this? He resigned, Zahara corrected. After I made it very clear that Aurora's mission is ethical capitalism or nothing. I meant it in the founding documents. I mean it now. She stepped closer, closing the corporate distance to something more direct. So let me be absolutely clear, Kyungmin Si. I'm not here to protect Aurora's quarterly returns. I'm here to prove that a $15 billion company can reform its practices, maintain profitability, and save lives simultaneously. If you're committed to that, I will fight for it even when my own investors question my sanity. But if you're going to cave the first time shareholder pressure gets uncomfortable, tell me now, so I can divest cleanly and move on. Silence stretched between them. Then Kyungmin did something unexpected. He laughed, short, almost disbelieving. You really would walk away? Without hesitation. Zahara held his gaze. The only thing I won't walk away from is half measures. Performative reforms that look good in press releases but don't actually change outcomes. I've seen too many companies play that game. I won't enable it. What if I fail? The question was quiet, almost vulnerable. What if I believe everything you're saying, commit completely, and still can't deliver the changes fast enough to prevent more deaths? Zahara softened slightly. Then you failed trying, which is infinitely better than succeeding at something worthless. But I don't think you'll fail. I think you're too proud, too terrified of becoming your father, and too aware now of what's at stake. That's a powerful combination if you channel it right. Kyungmin looked at her for a long moment. Has anyone ever told you that you're terrifying? Frequently, Zahara said, allowing a real smile this time. Usually right before they do exactly what I've been telling them is necessary. He smiled back, small, genuine, the first time she'd seen his expression reach his eyes. The committee meeting starts in 3 minutes. We should go down separately. You first. I'll follow in 90 seconds. Agreed. Zahara moved toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. Kyungmin? Yes. Your father failed because he prioritized shortcuts over integrity. She looked back at him. You're not failing. You're just finally asking the right questions. That's not weakness. It's the beginning of actual strength. She left before he could respond. Kyungmin stood alone in his office, staring at the closed door, thinking about a woman who'd just called him strong for admitting doubt, and realized that somewhere between London and Nairobi in this moment, Zahara Ellington Price had stopped being an adversary and become something far more dangerous, a partner he actually trusted. 3 months of committee work turned Zahara and Kyungmin into something neither had anticipated, a functional team. They fought constantly, fought about pricing timelines. Zahara wanted immediate 60% reductions across 12 African markets. Kyungmin insisted on phased implementation to avoid supply chain collapse. Fought about transparency. She demanded full disclosure of manufacturing costs. He argued proprietary protection. Fought about governance. She wanted independent oversight. He maintained that board authority couldn't be undermined. But they fought productively. Every argument ended with a solution neither had started with, some hybrid approach that was better than either original position. They learned each other's rhythms. She pushed hardest in morning meetings when her data analysis was sharpest. He negotiated best after lunch, when his patience outlasted everyone else's. They developed a wordless language of glances across boardrooms. This director is lying. That number doesn't add up. Time to call for a vote. Marcus watched it with increasing concern. You finish each other's sentences now, he said one evening in Aurora's London office, reviewing the latest Helixon restructuring proposal. You know that, right? Zahara looked up from her laptop, genuinely surprised. We do not. 2 weeks ago, in the supply chain negotiation with the Kenyan distributor, you said the real bottleneck is, and CO said, customs clearance redundancy, which we can fix with, and you said, pre-approved shipment protocols. Without a pause, Marcus set down his tablet. Z, I've worked with you for 12 years. I've never seen you collaborate like this with anyone. That's because most people I collaborate with are either incompetent or performing competence. Zahara returned to her screen. Kyungmin is neither. He's smart, he follows through, and he's willing to admit when he's wrong. That's vanishingly rare. It's also the description of someone you respect, Marcus said carefully. Maybe more than respect. Zahara's fingers stopped typing. We have a professional relationship governed by committee bylaws and corporate ethics policies. That's it. Sure, Marcus said. That's why you check your phone every 15 minutes when he's traveling. That's why you smile at emails from Helixon's Seoul office and frown at emails from literally everyone else. That's why you canceled your vacation, your first vacation in 3 years, to attend a pricing summit in Geneva that you both know could have happened over video conference. The Geneva meeting required in-person. The Geneva meeting required nothing. Marcus interrupted gently. What it offered was 72 hours in neutral territory without board oversight, media scrutiny, or committee politics. And you both jumped at it. Zahara closed her laptop, looked at Marcus directly. What exactly are you accusing me of? Nothing. He softened. I'm worried about you. Because I've watched you build walls for 6 years after what happened at the last fund. Watched you decide that professional excellence was safer than personal connection. And now I'm watching those walls develop cracks. If this goes badly, if CO turns out to be performing integrity instead of living it, if Ji-hoon succeeds in manufacturing scandal, if the board forces a choice between the committee work and Aurora's reputation, you're going to get hurt. Badly. Zahara was quiet for a long moment. What if he's real, Marcus? What if this isn't performance? What if I've finally found someone who cares about the same things with the same intensity? Who challenges me without diminishing me? Who makes me better at the work I've dedicated my life to? What if walking away from that to protect myself is just another form of the cowardice I've spent 6 years trying to overcome? Marcus sighed. Then I guess we're going to find out in Geneva whether your instincts are as good with people as they are with balance sheets. I guess we are, Zahara said quietly. Geneva was unseasonably warm for November, the lake reflecting Alps and sky in perfect mirror symmetry. The pricing summit was exactly as tedious as Zahara had predicted. 8 hours of pharmaceutical executives discussing tiered market strategies and regulatory arbitrage. She and Kyungmin sat through it with professional attention, took notes, asked pointed questions that made 3 presenters visibly uncomfortable. But when the formal sessions ended at 6 p.m. and the other executives headed to hotel bars and networking dinners, they didn't join them. Walk? Kyungmin asked, so casually it almost sounded spontaneous. Walk, Zahara agreed. They ended up at a small cafe overlooking the lake, the kind of place with outdoor heaters and terrible coffee and absolute privacy, because no one from their world would ever choose somewhere this aggressively ordinary. Zahara ordered espresso anyway. Kyungmin got tea that arrived in a chipped pot. This is the worst coffee I've ever had, Zahara said after the first sip. The tea is also tragic, Kyungmin agreed. Why are we still sitting here? Because no one can find us. Because there are no cameras, no board members, no journalists, no committee politics. Because for the next hour, we can just be 2 people having a conversation, instead of corporate representatives engaged in high-stakes negotiation. Kyungmin set down his cup. Is that what we are? Just corporate representatives? The question hung between them like smoke. Zahara should have deflected. Should have made a professional joke, changed the subject, maintained the careful boundaries that had kept them functional for 3 months. Instead, she said, I don't know anymore. Kyungmin leaned back, studying her in the fading light. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone in a professional context? That depends on what it is, Zahara said carefully. When my father's company collapsed, I was 26. His voice was quiet, almost detached, the tone of someone discussing old scars. I'd just finished my MBA at Stanford, had offers from 3 American firms. I could have walked away, built a career entirely separate from his failure. But my mother asked me to come home, said the family name needed redemption, that I was the only one who could rebuild what he'd destroyed. So you did, Zahara said. So I did. He smiled without humor. Spent 15 years being more perfect than anyone could criticize. More ethical, more transparent, more committed to governance standards and compliance frameworks. I thought if I built something irreproachable, I could erase his mistakes, prove that the SEO name meant integrity, not corruption. But? Zahara prompted gently. But somewhere in all that perfection, I forgot to ask whether I was being ethical or just performing ethics. He looked directly at her. The pricing policies that killed 17 people in Nairobi, they were all legal, all within industry standards, all approved by compliance departments and external auditors. I could have defended them forever on technical grounds, and I would have, until you walked into that boardroom and asked me a question that didn't have a technical answer. What question? Zahara asked, even though she knew. Whether I could look at myself in the mirror and honestly say I was different from my father. His voice cracked slightly. Because he also thought he was following the rules. He also believed his decisions were justified. He was just wrong about which rules actually mattered. Zahara reached across the small table and did something she never did in professional contexts. She took his hand. You're not your father, Kyungmin. Your father would have fought the committee, denied responsibility, protected quarterly profits over human lives. You got on a plane to Nairobi. You sat with Dr. Mbeki and didn't make excuses. You restructured an entire division's pricing strategy, even though it cost you 30 board votes and $2 billion in market valuation. Those are choices. They define you. He looked at their joined hands, didn't pull away. Do you know why I really asked you to co-lead the committee? Because Aurora's investment gave me leverage and you couldn't refuse. Because you were the first person in 7 years who told me the truth, even when it cost you something to say it. His thumb traced across her knuckles, probably unconsciously. Everyone else manages me, tells me what I want to hear, or what serves their agenda, or what protects their position. You told me people were dying, and you didn't care if it destroyed our working relationship or tanked Aurora's investment. That kind of honesty is... He paused, searching for words. It's rare. It's precious. It's the only thing I can actually trust. Zahara felt something in her chest tighten and release simultaneously. Kyungmin, I know, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I know the optics are impossible. I know Ji-hoon and half the board are waiting for any excuse to claim conflict of interest. I know all the rational reasons why this conversation should end right now with us pretending it never happened. Then why are we having it? Zahara asked. Because I'm tired of pretending. He said it simply, like an admission of defeat and victory combined. Tired of performing perfection. Tired of managing every word and gesture for corporate consumption. 3 months of working with you has taught me that maybe real integrity isn't about being irreproachable. Maybe it's about being honest even when honesty is messy and complicated and doesn't fit into committee bylaws. The sun was setting over the Alps now, painting the lake in shades of amber and rose. The cafe was nearly empty. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolled the hour. Zahara should have pulled her hand away, should have established boundaries, reminded him of professional ethics, cited the dozens of reasons why this moment was dangerous. Instead, she said, "What are you asking me, Kyungmin?" Her voice was quieter than she'd intended. "I'm asking if you feel it too." He leaned forward slightly, his gaze unwavering. "This thing that's been building for 3 months. In boardrooms when you defend my decisions to hostile directors. In late-night emails when you send me research I didn't ask for but needed anyway. In the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. I'm asking if I'm the only one who stopped being able to pretend this is just a professional collaboration." Zahara's heart was doing something complicated in her chest. "You're not the only one." The admission hung between them, fragile and enormous. "Then what do we do about it?" Kyungmin asked. "Because the rules are clear. Committee members aren't supposed to have personal relationships. Board members will use any hint of impropriety to undermine our work. The media will have a field day. Powerful CEO and activist investor. The speculation writes itself. We could destroy everything we've built." "Yes," Zahara agreed, her hand still in his. "We could. Or? His expression was intense, almost desperate. "Or we're brutally honest about it." The idea was forming even as she spoke it. Not to the media, not yet, but to ourselves, to each other. We establish rules. In the boardroom, we're completely professional. Every decision documented. Every interaction beyond reproach. But when we're not in corporate contexts, when we're here, or anywhere else where work doesn't dictate the terms, we're just 2 people who are tired of pretending they don't feel something real. Kyungmin studied her carefully. "You're proposing we compartmentalize. I'm proposing we're honest." Zahara squeezed his hand gently. "Compartmentalizing is pretending work and personal life don't affect each other. What I'm suggesting is we acknowledge they do, but we're disciplined about boundaries. In committee meetings, you're my professional partner. In spaces like this, you're..." She hesitated. "What?" he prompted softly. "Someone I want to know beyond the metrics and boardroom strategies." She smiled slightly. "Someone who makes me remember that I'm more than just Aurora's director and the work I've dedicated my life to. Someone who challenges me and infuriates me and makes me feel like maybe being perfect isn't the only way to be strong." Kyungmin was silent for a long moment. Then he said very quietly, "If we do this, if we try this compartmentalization, these dual rules, we have to be completely honest with each other. No corporate diplomacy. No managing each other's feelings. No protecting egos. If this is going to work, the one place where we can't perform is with each other. Agreed, Zahara said immediately. Boardroom rules, impeccable professionalism. Bedroom rules. She paused, then committed to the metaphor. Bedroom rules, brutal honesty. No matter how uncomfortable. No matter what it costs. If we're going to risk this, we do it without illusions. Bedroom honesty, Kyungmin repeated, something like wonder in his voice. That's either the most mature thing I've ever heard, or the most dangerous. Probably both, Zahara admitted. But I'm tired of safe, Kyungmin. I've spent 6 years building walls to protect myself from exactly this kind of vulnerability. And you know what I've learned? Safety is comfortable. But it's also hollow. If I'm going to take a risk, if I'm going to let someone pass the defenses I've perfected, it's going to be with someone who's worth it. Someone who'll tell me the truth even when it's hard. Someone who'll demand the same from me. Kyungmin's expression shifted, vulnerability and determination mixing into something she'd never seen from him. I've spent 15 years trying to be perfect, because I thought that's what integrity meant. You've taught me that maybe the most ethical thing I can do is admit when I don't have all the answers, when I need help, when I'm wrong. If we're going to do this, really do this, I need you to promise me something. What? Zahara asked. That if this starts affecting our work, if either of us can't maintain the boundaries, if board politics make this impossible, if we realize we were wrong about being able to separate professional and personal, we end it. Cleanly. Before it destroys what we've built for the committee. Before 17 deaths in Nairobi become meaningless because we prioritized our feelings over the work. It was the most brutally honest proposal Zahara had ever heard. And somehow, that made it perfect. I promise, she said. Work comes first, lives come first. If we can't maintain both, we choose the work. No drama, no resentment. We walk away like adults. Okay, Kyungmin said quietly. Then, even quieter. Can I kiss you now? Or is that still the boardroom? Zahara laughed, genuine, surprised, delighted. This is definitely not the boardroom. He leaned across the small cafe table, and she met him halfway. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, like both of them were still half expecting the other to pull away and remember all the reasons this was impossible. But then Zahara's hand tightened in his, and Kyungmin's free hand came up to cup her face, and suddenly the kiss deepened into something that felt like recognition, like finding something they hadn't known they'd been searching for. When they finally broke apart, the cafe owner was pointedly stacking chairs nearby, a gentle hint that closing time had arrived. Kyungmin laughed softly. I think we've overstayed our welcome. Probably, Zahara agreed, standing and leaving cash on the table that was definitely more than their terrible coffee and tragic tea cost. Walk me back to the hotel? Which hotel? Kyungmin asked, standing as well, his hand finding hers naturally. Whichever one is farthest, Zahara said. I'm not ready for this to end yet. They walked along Lake Geneva for an hour, talking about everything except work. About his childhood in Seoul watching his family's reputation collapse and rebuilding itself. About her years putting herself through university while working 3 jobs, the red Mont Blanc pen her only luxury. About books they'd loved, and places they'd never been, and the strange loneliness of being powerful in a world that constantly watched for weakness. By the time they reached Zahara's hotel, the city was quiet, and the lake was silver under a cold moon. Tomorrow, we go back to being committee co-leaders, Kyungmin said at the entrance. Professional, documented, beyond reproach. Tomorrow, Zahara agreed. But tonight was ours. He kissed her again, slower this time, with the kind of attention that said, I'm memorizing this. Then he stepped back, put his hands in his pockets, and smiled in a way that transformed his usually controlled expression into something almost boyish. Brutal honesty, he said. Always. Zahara confirmed. I haven't felt this terrified and hopeful simultaneously in 15 years. Good, she said softly. That means it matters. She watched him walk away into the Geneva night, his figure eventually disappearing around a corner. Then she went up to her room, sat on the bed, and called Marcus. How was Geneva? He asked without preamble. Complicated, Zahara admitted. We're trying something. Compartmentalization with brutal honesty. Professional in work contexts, personal everywhere else. It's either brilliant or catastrophic. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You know I'll support you either way. I know, Zahara said. That's why I'm telling you. Because if this goes wrong, if I've miscalculated, if he's not who I think he is, if the board uses this to destroy us, I need someone who knows the truth. Someone who can remind me why I thought this was worth the risk. And if it goes right, Marcus asked gently. Zahara smiled at her reflection in the hotel window, the city lights of Geneva spreading below like promises. If it goes right, Marcus, I think we might actually change something. Not just pharmaceutical pricing, not just corporate governance, but the idea that people at our level can't be fully human, can't be honest, can't build something real while also building something important. That's a big if, Marcus said. Yes, Zahara agreed. But I'm tired of small. After they hung up, she sat in the dark hotel room for a long time, thinking about a kiss in a terrible cafe, and a man who'd asked for brutal honesty instead of comfortable lies, and thought, this is either the best decision I've ever made, or it's going to teach me exactly how much I'm willing to risk for something real. Either way, she was done pretending. The flight back to London was pure professionalism. Zahara sat in business class reviewing committee documents. Kyungmin was 4 rows ahead, engaged in a video call with Helixon's Seoul office about quarterly projections. They didn't speak beyond a polite nod when boarding. To any observer, they were exactly what they'd always been, professional colleagues maintaining appropriate corporate distance. But when Zahara's laptop pinged with a new email an hour into the flight, she opened it to find a message from Kyungmin's personal account, not his corporate one. Subject: Brutal Honesty, Day 1. I miss you already. Which is ridiculous since we spent 3 days together and you're currently 40 feet away. But boardroom rules apply at 30,000 feet, apparently. So I'm telling you here instead, Geneva wasn't just a good decision. It was the first time in 15 years I've felt like myself instead of the careful performance of myself. Thank you for that. K. Zahara felt something warm unfurl in her chest. She typed back quickly. Subject: Rai, Brutal Honesty, Day 1. Boardroom rules absolutely apply at 30,000 feet. We're literally above the boardroom right now. But since you started this, I keep thinking about what you said about being tired of performing perfection. I've spent 6 years doing the exact same thing. Decided after the last fun that being invulnerable was safer than being real. You're making me question whether safe is actually what I want, or if I just convinced myself it was because I was afraid of the alternative. Still terrified, for the record. But also, not sorry. Zed. His response came back within minutes. Subject: Brutal Honesty, Day 1. Terrified is good. Means we're not delusional about the risks. Speaking of which, committee meeting Tuesday, 9 a.m. Seoul time. Park Ji-hoon will try to challenge our Q3 pricing projections. Marcus sent me preliminary data that suggests he's wrong, but we'll need to present united front. Boardroom mode, K-Dao. Zahara smiled at the seamless shift back to professional strategy. Subject: Brutal Honesty, Day 1. Boardroom mode confirmed. I'll have full analysis ready by Monday evening. We'll dismantle his arguments with data so airtight he'll have nothing left but wounded ego. See you Tuesday, professionally. From appropriate corporate distance. Z. His final response was a single line. Can't wait. Both for the data dismantling and the appropriate corporate distance. K. Zahara closed her laptop, tucked her smile behind a carefully neutral expression, and thought, "We might actually pull this off." The next 6 weeks were a masterclass in compartmentalization. In committee meetings, Zahara and Kyungmin were impeccable. Every decision documented in triplicate. Every interaction witnessed by at least 2 other executives. They disagreed publicly when their positions diverged. She pushed for faster implementation timelines. He advocated for stability and supply chain integrity. They compromised visibly, showing the board that personal feelings played zero role in their professional judgment. Park Ji-hoon watched them like a hawk, searching for any hint of impropriety. He found nothing, because in public, there was nothing to find. But in private, in encrypted emails sent from personal accounts, in late-night phone calls when Seoul's morning overlapped with London's evening, in a carefully planned weekend in Paris where no industry conferences happened to be scheduled, they built something that felt revolutionary precisely because it was honest. Brutal truth? Kyungmin asked one night during a video call, his Seoul apartment dark behind him, except for city lights. "Always," Zahara confirmed from her London flat, curled in an armchair with tea. "I'm falling in love with you." He said it simply, without drama. Not in some performative romantic gesture way. In the way where I wake up thinking about what you'd say about the news. Where I catch myself writing reports structured the way you'd structure them because your logic is better than mine. Where I realized last week that the most important opinion in my life is yours. And that terrifies me because it means I've given you power to hurt me. But I promised brutal honesty. So there it is. Zahara's heart was doing complicated things. That's quite an admission. "Your turn," Kyungmin said, expression carefully neutral but eyes vulnerable. Brutal honesty. She took a breath. "I'm falling in love with you too." Which is inconvenient and dangerous and probably the worst professional decision I could make. But it's also the first time in years I've felt like I'm not just surviving corporate warfare. I'm actually building something that matters with someone who sees me. Not Director Price, fund manager and ethical capitalism crusader. Just Zahara, who's sometimes lonely and frequently terrified and trying very hard not to screw this up. Kyungmin smiled, soft, genuine. "I think we're both terrified. Maybe that means we're doing it right. Or we're both terrible at risk assessment," Zahara countered. "That too," he agreed. "When can I see you? Not in a boardroom, not on a screen. Actual you." "I'm in Seoul next month for the annual review," Zahara said. 3 days of committee presentations and board meetings. "So, 3 days of appropriate corporate distance," Kyungmin said. "And then? And then maybe you show me Seoul." Zahara's voice softened. "The parts that aren't boardrooms and press conferences. The places you go when you're just Kyungmin, not the CEO carrying his family's redemption. I'd like that," he said quietly. "I'd like that very much." They talked for another hour. About nothing important. About everything important. About his mother's increasing pressure for him to marry appropriately. About Zahara's brother who kept asking when she'd visit home. About the strange guilt of being successful when people they loved struggled. When they finally ended the call, Zahara sat in her dark London flat and thought about a man 5,000 miles away who told her he was falling in love with her voice steady and eyes afraid. And realized she'd never felt more certain of an uncertain thing in her life. The Seoul Annual Review was scheduled for November 15th to 17. 3 days of presentations, board scrutiny, and media attention as Helixon reported its most significant operational restructuring in a decade. Zahara arrived 2 days early. Officially, to prepare materials and coordinate with Marcus on Aurora's position. Unofficially, because Kyungmin had sent her a single text. "Come early. I want to show you something before the boardroom rules take over again." He picked her up himself from Incheon Airport at 6 a.m. No driver, no security detail. Just him in jeans and a black sweater looking almost unrecognizable without corporate armor. Zahara climbed into the passenger seat of his understated sedan, and he didn't say hello. Just leaned over and kissed her like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "Hi," he said, when they finally broke apart. "Hi yourself," Zahara replied, smiling. "What are we doing at 6 a.m? "Showing you Seoul," Kyungmin said, pulling out of the airport. "The real one. Before we spend 3 days performing corporate excellence." He drove her to Bukchon Hanok village as the sun rose, traditional houses painted in light that turned everything golden. They walked narrow alleys without speaking much, just existing in the same space without agendas or documentation. He bought her hotteok from a street vendor, sweet pancakes that burned her tongue and made her laugh. "This is my favorite part of the city," Kyungmin said, as they stood overlooking Seoul's impossible sprawl of old and new. "When my father's company collapsed, I used to come here at dawn. Reminded me that things could be both broken and beautiful simultaneously. That destruction wasn't permanent." Zahara slipped her hand into his. "Are you still broken?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I think I'm learning that broken isn't the opposite of strong. Maybe it's just human. Very human," Zahara agreed softly. They spent the day like tourists, palace grounds and markets, museums and cafes. Kyungmin showed her the university where he'd studied before Stanford, the hospital where his father had his first heart attack, the office building where Helixin had been reborn from Scandal's ashes. Each location was a piece of his story, offered without performance or polish. By evening, they were in his apartment, minimalist, expensive, somehow still impersonal, except for a single shelf of books that looked actually read. Zahara studied the titles while he ordered dinner. Philosophy, history, 3 different translations of the Tao Te Ching, a worn copy of James Baldwin essays. "Not what you expected?" Kyungmin asked, appearing with wine. "I don't know what I expected," Zahara admitted, "but this feels right. Like the real you lives in these books more than in that perfect office." "The perfect office is the performance," he said, handing her a glass. "This is the truth, which is why almost no one gets to see it." "Why me?" Zahara asked. Kyungmin set down his wine, took hers from her hand, set it down too. Then he cupped her face with both hands, looking at her with an intensity that felt like exposure. "Because you already see me," he said quietly. "You saw me in that London boardroom when I was performing Control. You saw me in Nairobi when I couldn't hide behind corporate justifications anymore. You saw me in Geneva when I admitted I was terrified of becoming my father. Every time, you saw the truth underneath the performance. So yes, you get to see this too. The books I read when I can't sleep, the music I listen to when I'm alone. The man who's still figuring out whether redemption is possible or just another story I'm telling myself." Zahara kissed him. Not gentle this time, urgent, like she was trying to communicate something words couldn't carry. When they broke apart, she said, "Brutal honesty?" "Always," Kyungmin confirmed. "I'm terrified that 3 days from now, we'll have to go back to performing, that the board will see through us, that Ji-hoon will find something to use against us, that I'll have to choose between this and the work. But right now, in this moment, I don't care about any of that. Right now, I just want this. You. Real and imperfect and honest. Then that's what we'll be," Kyungmin said. "Tonight, we're not committee co-leaders. We're not corporate representatives. We're just Zahara and Kyungmin, figuring out what it means to build something true in a world that punishes honesty." They spent the night talking and not talking, building intimacy in the spaces between words. And when morning came, when reality and boardroom rules reasserted themselves, they made a pact. Whatever happened in the next 3 days, whatever scrutiny or pressure or political maneuvering, they'd face it honestly. Together when the rules allowed, separately when professionalism demanded. But always knowing that somewhere beneath corporate performance, something real existed. Something worth protecting. Even if it meant fighting for it in ways neither had anticipated. The Seoul Annual Review began with perfection. Zahara and Kyungmin presented the committee's 6-month results to Helixin's full board with surgical precision. 60% price reduction across 12 African markets, implemented in phases to maintain supply chain stability. Partnership with 3 international NGOs to streamline distribution. Early data showing mortality reduction in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. Projected short-term stock impact, -8 to 12%. Projected 5-year value creation, +35 to 40%. The presentation was flawless. Every number documented. Every decision justified with data. Every potential objection anticipated and addressed. Park Ji-hoon sat 3 seats from the head of the table. Immaculate suit, calculating expression, fingers steepled like a man watching a chess game he'd already won. When the presentation concluded, the board chairman, Director Kim, 72 years old, traditional as they came, nodded slowly. Impressive work. The ethical improvements are commendable. However, I must ask, how do we justify an 8 to 12% stock decline to shareholders who invested based on different operational assumptions? Zahara fielded it immediately. With respect, Director Kim, shareholders invested in Helix's stated ESG commitments. Our reforms don't contradict those commitments. They fulfill them. The short-term stock impact is offset by long-term reputational value, regulatory goodwill, and positioning in emerging markets where ethical practices are becoming competitive advantages. Assuming shareholders care about long-term value, Ji-hoon interjected smoothly. Many institutional investors prioritize quarterly performance. They may interpret this restructuring as activist overreach compromising fiduciary duty. Kyungmin's expression didn't change. Then we present them with the alternative. Maintain pricing that generates negative international press, regulatory scrutiny in 3 jurisdictions, and eventual mandatory intervention that will cost more in legal fees than our voluntary reforms. This isn't activist overreach. It's strategic risk mitigation. Strategic risk mitigation that conveniently aligns with Director Price's fund philosophy. Ji-hoon said, tone courteous but implication sharp. One might question whether the committee's recommendations prioritize Helix's interests or Aurora's ideological agenda. The temperature in the room shifted. Marcus, seated in the observer section, went very still. Zahara met Ji-hoon's gaze directly. My fund's ideological agenda, as you frame it, has consistently outperformed market benchmarks by prioritizing companies that align profit with responsibility. If you're suggesting Aurora benefits from Helix's reforms, yes, we do. Along with every other long-term investor who understands that sustainable practices create sustainable value. If you're suggesting my personal judgment is compromised, she paused deliberately. I invite you to identify a single committee recommendation that lacks data justification or prioritizes Aurora's interests over Helix's operational needs. Ji-hoon smiled thinly. I'm merely noting that close collaboration sometimes creates perceptual challenges, particularly when committee co-leaders spend significant time together outside formal meetings. Silence. Director Kim frowned. Are you implying impropriety, CFO Park? I'm stating fact. Ji-hoon replied smoothly. Director Price and CEO SEO have traveled together to 3 continents over 6 months. Geneva, Nairobi, Paris. While I'm certain all interactions were professional, shareholders may question whether such proximity affects independence. Kyungmin's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Committee work requires coordination. Travel is documented and justified. If you're questioning our professional integrity based on logistical necessity, I'm questioning whether adequate oversight exists. Ji-hoon interrupted gently. Corporate governance best practices suggest that decision-makers with significant collaborative relationships should have additional transparency mechanisms. Perhaps an independent auditor reviewing committee recommendations before board votes. It was brilliantly played. Not an accusation. A reasonable governance suggestion that planted doubt without requiring evidence. Director Kim looked troubled. 2 other board members exchanged glances. Zahara felt rage building behind her professionally neutral expression. But before she could respond, Kyungmin spoke. CFO Park raises a valid governance question. I propose we table the current discussion and reconvene tomorrow with a revised oversight protocol. Director Price and I will prepare additional documentation demonstrating decision-making processes. The board can then vote on both the reforms and any necessary governance adjustments. It was the right move strategically. Defuse the moment, regroup, come back stronger. But it also meant giving Ji-hoon exactly what he wanted: delay and doubt. The board agreed. Meeting adjourned. As executives filed out, Marcus appeared at Zahara's elbow. "Conference room 3. Now, you too, Seo." The three of them reconvened in a small glass-walled room overlooking Seoul's financial district. Marcus closed the door with controlled fury. "He knows," Marcus said flatly, "or suspects strongly enough to weaponize it. That performance in there wasn't random governance concern. That was a man testing how far he can push before you crack." "We haven't done anything wrong," Zahara said, but her voice was less certain than she wanted. "Every meeting documented. Every decision justified. Our personal relationship doesn't affect professional judgment." "Doesn't matter," Marcus countered. "Perception is reality in boardroom politics. If Ji-hoon convinces enough directors that you two are personally involved, he doesn't need proof of actual impropriety. He just needs to create reasonable doubt about your independence." Kyungmin stood at the window, back to them, shoulders rigid. "He's been watching us. 3 continents," he said. "Geneva wasn't even on the official committee travel log. That was personal time." "Which means someone reported it," Zahara said quietly. "Someone who knew we were both there. Hotel staff, airport workers, colleagues who saw us together." Marcus ticked off possibilities. Could be anyone. The question is, what's his end game? If he wanted you gone, he could have leaked to media already. Instead, he's playing it slow in board meetings. Why? "Because media scandal destroys us immediately," Kyungmin said, turning from the window. "But board-driven governance concerns destroy our work slowly while keeping him clean. If he forces an independent audit, every decision we've made gets re-examined through a lens of potential bias. Even if we're cleared, the reforms get delayed 6 months while auditors review. Stock recovers. Shareholder pressure to reverse pricing changes builds. Eventually, the board votes to postpone reforms pending further study. And Ji-hoon positions himself as the reasonable voice protecting corporate interests from activist overreach. That's actually brilliant," Marcus admitted reluctantly. "Machiavellian, but brilliant." Zahara sank into a chair. "So what do we do? Admit the relationship and weather the scandal? Lie and risk exposure later? End things and hope he backs off?" Kyungmin looked at her. Really looked at her. With an expression that was equal parts devastation and determination. "Brutal honesty?" "Always," Zahara whispered. "I don't want to end this," he said quietly. "I know that's selfish. I know the work matters more than personal feelings. But the thought of walking away from the first real thing I've felt in 15 years because Ji-hoon is playing power games," his voice cracked slightly. "It makes me want to burn the entire board structure down." Zahara felt tears threaten. Not here. Not now. She forced them back through sheer will. Marcus watched them both with something like sorrow. "There's a third option." "What?" Kyungmin asked. "Get ahead of it." Marcus pulled out his tablet, already typing. "You don't wait for Ji-hoon to control the narrative. You admit the relationship publicly, but you frame it, not as a scandal, as 2 professionals who maintained absolute ethical boundaries while developing personal connection. You volunteer for the independent audit. You invite scrutiny. You demonstrate that every decision stands on its merits regardless of personal relationship." "That's insane," Zahara said. "Admitting the relationship validates every conflict of interest accusation." "No," Marcus corrected. "Hiding it and getting exposed validates those accusations. Admitting it proactively and proving it didn't affect judgment defangs them. Ji-hoon's power comes from innuendo and doubt. If you remove the doubt, you remove his weapon." Kyungmin moved to stand beside Zahara's chair. "It's a huge risk." "Everything about this has been a huge risk," Zahara said, looking up at him. "We knew that in Geneva. We chose it anyway. Geneva was private, Kyungmin countered gently. This is admitting it to boards, shareholders, media, my mother, your investors, everyone who's been waiting for us to fail. Zahara stood, took his hands in full view of the glass walls and anyone who might be watching. Then we admit it like we mean it, not apologizing, not justifying, just stating fact. We're in a relationship. It doesn't compromise our work, and anyone who thinks it does is welcome to examine every decision we've ever made. We're either strong enough to survive that scrutiny, or we were never going to survive anyway. Marcus cleared his throat. For the record, as your CFO and oldest friend, I think this is either the bravest or most reckless thing you've ever done. Which do you actually think it is? Zahara asked. Marcus smiled slightly. I think you're terrifying when you stop playing defense and go on offense. Let's find out if the board is ready for that. They planned the announcement carefully. A joint statement to the board first, then shareholders, then controlled media release, professional language, clear documentation of ethics compliance, invitation for independent audit. They had 48 hours to prepare materials. Park Ji-hoon gave them 36. The photo hit Bloomberg at 6 a.m. Seoul time. Zahara and Kyungmin leaving his apartment building together. Her hair was down, unusual, unprofessional. His hand was on her lower back, intimate, unmistakable. The timestamp, 3 days ago, the morning before the annual review. The headline, Helixon CEO and activist investor, relationship raises ethics questions. Zahara's phone started ringing at 6:03 a.m., Aurora's board chair, 2 major investors, 3 journalists. Marcus on a 4-way call sounding like he'd been awake for hours. It's everywhere, he said without preamble. Financial Times picked it up. Korea Economic Daily. Wall Street Journal is running analysis on conflict of interest precedents in activist investing, and Helixon stock is down 4% in pre-market trading. Zahara was already dressing, phone on speaker. Where did the photo come from? Building security footage, Marcus said, which means someone with access leaked it. 3 guesses who, and the first 2 don't count. Ji-hoon, Zahara confirmed. He forced our hand. We were going to control the narrative. Now we're responding to scandal. Can you prove he leaked it? Marcus asked. Does it matter? Zahara countered. The photo is real. The relationship is real. Whether Ji-hoon leaked it or someone else, we're in crisis management mode now. Her door buzzed. She checked the security camera. Kyungmin, looking like he'd run the 12 blocks from his apartment, hair disheveled, expression grim. She let him in. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms without a word. They stood like that for a long moment. Not romantic, just grounding. Marcus is on speaker, Zahara said against his shoulder. Hi, Marcus, Kyungmin said, not releasing her. I assume you've seen the photo. And the 17 articles analyzing it, Marcus confirmed. What's the Helixon board situation? Emergency meeting in 2 hours, Kyungmin said. Director Kim called personally. He was diplomatic, which means the situation is worse than he's saying. Aurora's board wants a statement by noon, Marcus reported. Half of them want you to resign from the committee immediately to protect the fund's reputation. The other half want to wait for more information. Zahara pulled back to look at Kyungmin. We had a plan. Joint statement. Controlled disclosure. Evidence of ethics compliance. The plan assumed we controlled timing, Kyungmin said. Now timing controls us. Every hour we don't respond, the narrative gets worse. Then we respond now, Zahara decided. Not with the careful PR statement, with the truth. Marcus, I need you to send every Aurora board member a memo within the next hour. Contents. I am in a personal relationship with CEO Soh. It developed over the course of our professional collaboration. Every committee decision is documented and justified independent of personal feelings. I'm volunteering for immediate third-party audit of all recommendations. If the board determines I've compromised Aurora's interests or failed fiduciary duty, I'll resign. But I won't apologize for building something ethical professionally while also building something real personally. That's... Marcus paused. That's basically a dare. Yes, Zahara agreed. Because if I sound defensive, I look guilty. If I sound defiant, I look principled. Which one survives a boardroom fight? The principled one, Marcus admitted. Assuming your principles actually hold up to audit. They will, Zahara said with absolute certainty. Because we didn't do anything wrong. We fell in love while doing our jobs correctly. If that's somehow disqualifying, then the problem isn't us. It's a system that can't imagine professionals being both competent and human simultaneously. Kyungmin was staring at her. Did you just say fell in love? In a strategy memo? Yes, Zahara said. Because I'm done euphemizing. Done calling it a relationship like it's some abstract corporate concept. I love you. That's the truth. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise to make boards comfortable. Kyungmin's expression did something complicated. I love you too. For the record. Since we're apparently documenting everything. Christ, you two are going to give me a heart attack, Marcus muttered. Fine. I'll draft the Aurora memo. CO, what's your play with Helixson's board? Same strategy, Kyungmin said, finally releasing Zahara but keeping hold of her hand. I'm going into that meeting and admitting everything. The relationship, the personal connection. And then I'm walking them through 6 months of committee decisions proving none of it compromised my judgment or Helixson's interests. If Ji-hoon or anyone else wants to challenge specific recommendations, I'll defend them point by point. And if the board demands you choose between the relationship and your position? Marcus asked quietly. Kyungmin looked at Zahara. Then I guess I find out whether I've spent 15 years rebuilding my family's reputation just to be as much of a coward as my father. Or whether I'm finally brave enough to prioritize being right over looking perfect. That's not an answer, Marcus pressed. Yes, it is, Kyungmin said softly, eyes still on Zahara. I choose the truth, whatever it costs. Zahara felt her throat tighten. That could cost you everything. Not everything, Kyungmin corrected. It might cost me Helixson. But keeping Helixson by betraying you would cost me myself. And I've spent enough years being someone I'm not sure I recognize. I'm done with that. Marcus made a sound suspiciously like he was fighting emotion. Okay. You're both either completely insane or the most ethically consistent people I've ever met. Possibly both. I'll draft the Aurora memo. You two prepare for separate board meetings from hell, and we regroup in 6 hours to assess damage. Marcus, Zahara said. Yeah? Thank you for not saying I told you so. Oh, I absolutely told you so, Marcus replied. But you were right that some risks are worth taking. Now go prove it. The call ended. Zahara and Kyungmin stood in her hotel room as Seoul woke up outside. Their relationship now international news, their professional reputations under attack, their carefully built committee work in jeopardy. Ready? Kyungmin asked. No, Zahara admitted. But we're doing it anyway. He kissed her. Fierce and fast, and full of something that felt like promise. Boardroom rules from now until this is over. Boardroom rules, Zahara agreed. But we remember what we're fighting for. Always, Kyungmin said. They left separately. Corporate protocol, damage control, the beginning of the hardest fight either had ever faced. But they left knowing one thing neither had been certain of before. They were willing to lose everything professional to keep something personal. And that clarity, terrifying as it was, felt like the most honest thing either had done in years. The Aurora board call was brutal. Zahara sat in her hotel room, laptop open, facing 12 board members in various states of fury, concern, and calculation. The chair, Catherine Morrison, 68, pioneer of ethical investing, Zahara's mentor and occasional nightmare, led the inquisition. Walk me through your thinking, Catherine said, voice dangerously calm. You built Aurora on the principle that ethics and profit aren't mutually exclusive. Our entire brand is holding companies accountable to stated values. And now we discover our director is personally involved with the CEO she's supposed to be overseeing. Explain how that aligns with our mission. Zahara had prepared for this. It aligns because the work speaks for itself. 6 months of committee decisions, documented, auditable. Every pricing reform, every supply chain modification, every governance adjustment, justified by data and ethical framework independent of personal relationship. I'm not asking you to trust my feelings. I'm asking you to examine my decisions. The appearance of impropriety matters. Another director, James Chen, former SEC commissioner, interjected. Even if your decisions are technically sound, the relationship creates reasonable questions about independence. That's corporate governance 101. With respect, James, that's also the argument used to exclude women and minorities from leadership for decades, Zahara countered, keeping her voice level. Appearance became code for, we're uncomfortable with you existing in this space. I'm not suggesting appearance doesn't matter. I'm suggesting we examine whether the discomfort comes from actual ethics violations or from the assumption that personal relationships automatically compromise professional judgment. That's a false equivalence, James said sharply. Is it? Zahara challenged. Or are we so accustomed to requiring executives to be emotionally isolated that we can't imagine competence and connection coexisting? I've reviewed conflict of interest case law. Relationships require disclosure and oversight. Yes. But they don't automatically constitute breaches unless decisions demonstrably prioritize personal over fiduciary interests. Show me one committee recommendation that does that, and I'll resign immediately. Silence. Catherine leaned forward. Zahara? Off the record, did this relationship affect your judgment? Zahara met her mentor's eyes through the screen. Yes and no. The board erupted. 3 directors started talking over each other. Catherine held up a hand. Explain. The relationship made me more rigorous, not less, Zahara said carefully. Every decision became higher stakes, because I knew any perception of bias would destroy credibility. So I double-checked every analysis. Documented every recommendation beyond normal requirements. Invited Marcus to review materials I'd usually handle alone. The relationship didn't compromise my judgment. It made me hyper-focused on proving my judgment was sound. That's sophistry, James muttered. That's honesty, Zahara corrected. You asked if the relationship affected my judgment. The truth is, every significant relationship affects judgment. Mentors, colleagues, friends, family. The question isn't whether connections exist. It's whether those connections corrupt decision-making. Mine didn't. I'm volunteering for third-party audit to prove it. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. The audit will take 6 weeks minimum. During that time, media will continue scrutinizing this situation. Investor confidence may erode. Are you prepared for Aurora's reputation to take that hit while you prove your point? No, Zahara admitted. But I'm more afraid of setting a precedent that professionals must choose between personal authenticity and career advancement. If I resign now, I validate the idea that relationships equal incompetence. That's not a world I want to build. Even if it cost you Aurora? Catherine asked softly. Zahara's chest tightened. Even then, Catherine exchanged glances with several board members. The board will vote. You'll have our decision by end of day. In the meantime, you're suspended from committee duties pending audit results. Understood, Zahara said. The call ended. Zahara closed her laptop and allowed herself exactly 60 seconds of shaking hands and controlled panic. Then she stood, straightened her blazer, and opened the door to find Marcus waiting in the hallway. How bad? He asked. Suspended pending audit. Board vote tonight on whether I'm removed entirely. Zahara walked past him toward the elevator. Your turn to say I told you so. I don't want to, Marcus said, following. I want to ask if you're okay. Zahara hit the elevator button harder than necessary. I'm possibly about to lose the company I built from nothing. My professional reputation is being shredded in international media. The work I've dedicated 6 months to is suspended while auditors who've never seen a patient suffer question every decision I made. And the man I love is probably in an identical nightmare scenario 12 floors above us. So, no, Marcus, I'm not okay. But I'd make the same choices again. Does that make me brave or stupid? The elevator arrived. They stepped in. Marcus waited until the doors closed. Z, look at me. She did. You're one of the most brilliant people I've ever met, Marcus said quietly. You built Aurora because every other fund told you that ethics and profit couldn't coexist, and you proved them wrong. You took on Helixin because 17 people died, and nobody else cared enough to risk their career fighting about it. You've spent 6 years being invulnerable because vulnerability almost destroyed you once. And now you're choosing to be vulnerable anyway. Consequences be damned. That's not stupid. That's the most courageously human thing I've ever watched you do. Zahara felt tears threatening again. What if I lose everything? Then you rebuild, Marcus said simply. Like you did before. Like you've taught every company in our portfolio to do. You don't give up because the cost is high. You reassess, you adapt, and you keep fighting for what matters. The elevator reached the lobby. Doors opened onto chaos. Photographers, journalists, camera crews waiting. How the hell did they know which hotel? Zahara muttered. Jihoon probably told them, Marcus said grimly. Backdoor exit, now. They turned, headed for service corridors. Got halfway to the delivery entrance before Zahara's phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Director Price. Ms. Price. The voice was female, older, accented with perfect English and unmistakable authority. This is Seo Youngja, Kyungmin's mother. I believe we need to talk. Zahara stopped walking, looked at Marcus with an expression that said, This day just got impossibly worse. Mrs. Seo, she said carefully, I'm happy to meet at your convenience. I'm currently in your hotel lobby, Youngja said. The front lobby, where the reporters are gathering. I suggest you use discretion entering, but do come. We have much to discuss about my son's future. The line went dead. That was Kyungmin's mother, Zahara said faintly. The traditional Korean matriarch who probably disapproves of literally everything about this situation? Marcus confirmed. That's the one, Zahara agreed. Okay, Marcus said. Deep breath. You've faced hostile boards, skeptical investors, and corporate sabotage. You can handle one disapproving mother. Can I? Zahara asked. Absolutely not, Marcus admitted. But you're going to try anyway because that's who you are. I'll run interference with the reporters. You go meet your maybe future mother-in-law. Try not to start an international incident. No promises, Zahara muttered. She headed back toward the front lobby, each step feeling like walking toward execution. But she'd meant what she said to Catherine. She was done running from uncomfortable truths. Even when the uncomfortable truth was a 73-year-old matriarch who held her son's happiness in one hand and traditional expectations in the other. If you're wondering if love and career can coexist at the top, stick with me. The answer will surprise you. SEO Youngja sat in the hotel's private tea room like she'd been born to command elegant spaces. Pearl gray hanbok with subtle embroidery, silver hair in a perfect low bun, hands folded with the kind of stillness that suggested absolute control. She didn't stand when Zahara entered. Director Price, she said in impeccable English. Please sit. Zahara sat, kept her posture upright but not defensive, expression neutral but not cold. This was a negotiation whether or not either of them called it one. Thank you for meeting me, Mrs. Seo, Zahara said. I did not give you a choice, Youngja replied not unkindly. But politeness is noted. She poured tea, traditional ceremony, precise movements. You understand why I'm here. Because your son's relationship with me has become public scandal, Zahara said directly. And you're concerned about his reputation and Helix's stability. Youngja's lips curved slightly. Not quite approval, but acknowledgement. Direct, Kyungmin said you were. Tell me, Director Price, what do you know about my family's history? That your late husband's corruption nearly destroyed Helixin 20 years ago, Zahara said carefully. That your son rebuilt the company through extraordinary discipline and ethical focus. That family honor matters deeply in your culture, and scandal threatens that honor. All true, Youngja confirmed. What you may not know is that I supported my husband's removal. When the board suggested he resign quietly, I demanded full disclosure. When family members argued for protecting his reputation, I insisted on transparency. Because honor built on lies is no honor at all. Zahara sat straighter, surprised. I didn't know that. Few do, Youngja said. It's not a story my son likes to tell. He remembers the scandal, the shame, the rebuilding. What he forgets is that I taught him the difference between appearing perfect and being right. His father confused the two. I spent 20 years ensuring my son would not. She sipped her tea. Zahara waited. This relationship, Youngja continued, it complicates everything. Korean business culture does not easily accept unconventional partnerships. An American woman, a black woman, an activist investor. Every layer challenges expectations. I'm aware, Zahara said quietly. Are you? Youngja's gaze sharpened. Are you aware that I have received 17 calls from concerned board members, family friends, and business associates suggesting that my son's judgment has been compromised, that his legacy is at risk, that this scandal could undo 15 years of careful reputation management? Yes, Zahara said. I'm aware that I'm being positioned as the problem, the distraction, the impropriety that needs to be removed. And if you're here to ask me to end the relationship to protect your son, Mrs. Soh, I need you to know something. Youngja raised an eyebrow. Proceed. I love him, Zahara said, voice steady despite her racing heart. Not in some frivolous way, not as a complication or distraction. I love the man who flew to Nairobi to face consequences he'd been insulated from, who admitted he'd confused perfection with integrity and asked how to learn the difference, who stayed up 3 nights reviewing patient files because he couldn't stand the thought of anyone else dying due to his ignorance. I love his intelligence and his doubt, and the way he's still figuring out who he wants to be, separate from who his father was. And yes, that love has created complications, but it's also made me better at my work, and him better at his, because we hold each other to impossible standards and refuse to accept anything less than truth. She paused for breath. So if you're asking me to walk away to make his life easier, I'll consider it. But know that I'll only do it if he asks me himself, not his board, not his mother, him. Because I respect him enough to let him make his own choices about what he values more, legacy or love. Either answer is valid, but it has to be his answer. Silence. Youngja studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Genuine, warm, transforming her formal expression into something almost conspiratorial. My son chose well, she said. Zahara blinked. I'm sorry? I said, he chose well. Youngja set down her teacup. You are not what I expected, Director Price, but you are exactly what he needs. Mrs. Soh, I don't understand. I am 73 years old. Youngja interrupted. I have watched my son build an empire of reputation and discipline. I have watched him become so careful, so controlled, that he forgot how to be human. He calls me twice a week, reports Helixin's performance, asks about my health, never mentions his own happiness. Because he has convinced himself that happiness is selfish. She leaned forward slightly. Last week, for the first time in 15 years, he told me he was in love. Not because I asked, because he couldn't contain it. He spoke about you with such vitality, about arguments that challenged him, about decisions that forced him to question assumptions, about feeling like he was finally building something honest instead of just managing appearances. Do Do you understand what that means to a mother who has watched her child sacrifice his entire life to redeeming someone else's failures? Zahara felt her throat tighten. I think so. Then understand this, Youngja said firmly. I did not come here to ask you to leave. I came to ensure you would stay. Because the board will pressure him. The media will question him. And Kyungmin, for all his strength, has spent his entire adult life believing that love is a luxury he cannot afford. If he asks you to walk away, it will not be because he wants you gone. It will be because he has convinced himself you deserve better than the chaos he believes he's created. And if he does ask, Zahara whispered, then you fight for him, Youngja said. The way he fought for 17 strangers in Nairobi. The way he fought to rebuild our family name. You fight until he remembers that choosing love is not weakness. It is the bravest form of integrity. Can you do that, Director Price? Zahara met the older woman's eyes, saw in them something she hadn't expected. Not judgment, but recognition. Like Youngja was looking at a younger version of herself, who'd also chosen truth over comfort. Yes, Zahara said. I can do that. Youngja nodded, satisfied. Good. Now, there are practical matters. The board meeting today will be difficult. Park Ji-hoon has gathered support among conservative directors. They will demand my son choose between you and his position. You should prepare for that possibility. I am prepared, Zahara said. Are you prepared to lose him? Youngja asked bluntly. I'm prepared to survive it, Zahara answered, which isn't the same thing, but it's honest. Youngja smiled again. Yes, I see why he loves you. One more thing, Director Price. Yes? When this settles, and it will settle one way or another, you will join me for dinner. Traditional Korean meal. I will cook. Kyungmin will be mortified, and we will discuss what it means to be a woman who refuses to apologize for her power. Agreed? Zahara felt something warm bloom in her chest. Agreed. Youngja stood. Zahara stood as well. They bowed to each other, not as adversaries, but as women who recognized something essential in one another. My son is very fortunate, Youngja said as she prepared to leave. Though he may not realize it yet. Help him learn. I'll try, Zahara promised. Youngja paused at the door. Director Price, one final thought. Yes? The SEO family has survived many scandals, Youngja said. What we have not survived is cowardice. If my son chooses safety over truth, he becomes his father. If he chooses you, he becomes himself. I know which I prefer. Make sure he knows it too. She left. Zahara stood alone in the tea room, hands shaking slightly, mind reeling. She'd just received permission, no, a command, from Kyungmin's mother to fight for their relationship. And somehow, that felt like the most important approval she could possibly earn. The Helixon board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Kyungmin spent the 3 hours beforehand reviewing every committee decision, cross-referencing documentation, preparing for a battle he'd never expected to fight. His office phone rang at 1:47 p.m. Park Ji-hoon. CFO Park, Kyungmin answered, voice professionally neutral. I thought we should speak before the meeting, Ji-hoon said smoothly. Clear the air. Establish mutual understanding. Go ahead. I want you to know this isn't personal, Ji-hoon continued. I have tremendous respect for your leadership. The reforms you've implemented are admirable, if somewhat idealistic. But the board has fiduciary responsibilities that transcend personal relationships. Surely you understand that. What I understand, Kyungmin said carefully, is that you leaked the photo to Bloomberg, that you've spent 6 months undermining committee work while smiling in meetings, that this concern about fiduciary responsibility appeared exactly when the pricing reforms threatened your quarterly bonus structure. So please, Ji-hoon-si, spare me the diplomatic performance. What do you actually want? Silence. Then Ji-hoon laughed, short, impressed, despite himself. Direct, he said. Fine. I want what I've always wanted. Helixon's operational focus returned to shareholder value maximization. Your committee has diverted billions toward ethical initiatives that look wonderful in press releases but compromise competitive positioning. The relationship with Director Price simply provides convenient justification for board intervention. You want me to resign? Kyungmin said flatly. I want you to choose, Ji-hoon corrected. The company or the relationship. Leadership or love. It's a simple equation. If you end the relationship publicly, apologize for the appearance of impropriety, and allow independent restructuring of committee recommendations, the board will support your continued leadership. If you don't, he paused, the board will vote no confidence. You'll be removed. And Director Price's fund will be frozen out of future corporate governance discussions across the entire industry. I have relationships with 12 major institutional investors. One phone call, and Aurora becomes radioactive. Kyungmin felt rage building behind his carefully controlled expression. You're threatening both of us. I'm offering pragmatic solutions to self-inflicted problems, Ji-hoon replied. You knew the rules. You chose to break them. Consequences follow. But I'm giving you an out. Sacrifice the relationship, keep the position, everyone moves forward. Or sacrifice everything for a woman you've known 6 months. Your choice. The line went dead. Kyungmin sat in silence for 3 minutes. Then he picked up his phone and called Zahara. The board meeting is in 10 minutes, she said immediately. You okay? Ji-hoon just called, Kyungmin said. He offered a deal. I end the relationship publicly. He backs off the no-confidence vote. If I refuse, he removes me and blacklists Aurora across the industry. Zahara was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? What do you want me to do? Kyungmin countered. Don't put that on me, Zahara said firmly. This is your company, your legacy, your choice. I won't be the reason you lose everything you've built. You're not the reason, Kyungmin said. Ji-hoon is. The board's inability to imagine ethical leadership is. My father's corruption creating a context where any hint of impropriety becomes career-ending scandal is. You're just the person who made me realize I've spent 15 years being so afraid of becoming my father that I forgot to ask who I actually wanted to be. Kyungmin, brutal honesty? He interrupted. Always, Zahara whispered. If I choose the position over you, I become everything I've tried not to be, Kyungmin said. Performative, calculating, prioritizing appearance over substance. My father made that choice every day. It destroyed him and everyone around him. I won't repeat his mistakes. Even if it costs you Helixon? Zahara's voice cracked slightly. Helixon without integrity is just another corrupt chaebol, Kyungmin said. I'd rather lose it honestly than keep it through cowardice. Is that insane? Probably, Zahara admitted. But it's also the most honorable thing I've ever heard. I love you. I love you too, Kyungmin said. Now let me go fight for the principle that love and leadership aren't mutually exclusive. Win or lose? Zahara asked. Win or lose, he confirmed. The boardroom was silent when Kyungmin entered. 15 directors around the mahogany table, expressions ranging from sympathetic to hostile. Ji-hoon sat 3 seats from Director Kim, perfectly composed. Kyungmin took his position at the head of the table. Didn't sit. Standing gave him psychological advantage. I understand this meeting was called to address concerns about my personal relationship with Director Zahara Price. He began. Before we proceed, I want to state several facts clearly. Director Kim nodded. Please proceed. Fact 1. I am in a romantic relationship with Director Price, Kyungmin said. It developed over 6 months of intensive professional collaboration. We attempted to maintain complete separation between personal and professional spheres. We were not entirely successful in keeping it private. That failure is regrettable, but doesn't constitute ethical violation. Several directors shifted uncomfortably. Ji-hoon's expression remained neutral. Fact 2. Every decision made by the Ethics and Transformation Committee is documented and justified independent of personal relationship, Kyungmin continued. I have compiled 6 months of meeting minutes, data analyses, and decision rationales. They are available for independent audit immediately. If any director can identify a recommendation that prioritized personal interests over corporate welfare, I will resign without contest. He pulled out a tablet, displaying the compiled documentation on the boardroom screens. Fact 3. The pricing reforms we implemented have reduced mortality in 12 African markets by 43%, Kyungmin said, letting the number sink in. 17 deaths in Nairobi 6 months ago, 3 deaths last month. The cost to Helixin, 8% short-term stock decline. The gain, regulatory goodwill, ethical positioning, and lives saved. I'm prepared to defend that trade-off morally, strategically, and financially. CEO Soh, Ji-hoon interjected smoothly. No one disputes the humanitarian benefits. The question is whether those decisions were made with appropriate independence or whether personal feelings compromise professional judgment. Then audit me, Kyungmin said directly. Third-party review, full transparency, complete access to all committee materials. If the audit finds evidence of compromised judgment, I'll accept removal. But if it vindicates our work, CFO Park and anyone else questioning our integrity should apologize publicly. The room went very still. Director Kim leaned forward. You're volunteering for audit? I'm demanding it, Kyungmin corrected, because the alternative is allowing innuendo and speculation to undermine 6 months of work that has measurably saved lives. I won't let that happen. Not to protect my ego, not to spare my reputation. If I've failed in my responsibilities, expose it. But if I haven't, then the board needs to acknowledge that personal relationships don't automatically constitute professional misconduct. This is unprecedented, another director muttered. So is a CEO voluntarily reducing profit margins to prevent deaths, Kyungmin replied. Precedent isn't a defense against necessary change. My father believed following precedent meant following rules. He was wrong. Sometimes the most ethical choice is the unprecedented one. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And if the audit takes months? If media continues speculating? If shareholder confidence erodes during the investigation? Then we communicate transparently, Kyungmin said. We release a statement. CEO SEO and Director Price are in a relationship. Both volunteered for independent ethics review. Results will be public upon completion. In the meantime, all committee recommendations are being independently verified. That's not scandal management. That's leadership modeling accountability. Director Kim exchanged glances with several other board members. This is highly irregular. Yes, Kyungmin agreed. But consider the alternative. We remove executives for having personal relationships, regardless of professional performance. We establish precedent that leadership requires emotional isolation. We tell every talented professional that reaching the C-suite means sacrificing human connection. Is that the culture we want to institutionalize? He paused, letting the question resonate. My father made many mistakes, Kyungmin said quietly. But his worst wasn't corruption. It was believing that looking perfect mattered more than being right. I rebuilt this company by rejecting that philosophy. I'm not going to embrace it now just because the board is uncomfortable with executives being fully human. You're asking us to approve your relationship, Ji-hoon said, tone sharp now. No, Kyungmin corrected. I'm informing you that it exists, and inviting scrutiny of whether it has compromised my judgment. Your approval isn't required for my personal life. Your oversight of my professional decisions is. Those are separate domains. If you can't distinguish them, perhaps the problem isn't my relationship. It's the board's inability to evaluate performance independent of personal bias. The silence was electric. Director Kim stood slowly. The board will deliberate privately. CEO SEO, please wait outside. Kyungmin bowed slightly. One more thing. Yes? If you vote to remove me, I'll respect the decision, Kyungmin said. but I want it stated clearly. Am I being removed for actual performance failures, or for having a relationship the board finds uncomfortable? Because history will judge this company based on which answer is true. He left. The boardroom door closed behind him. And Kyungmin stood in the hallway, hands shaking slightly, thinking. Boardroom door closed behind him. And Kyungmin stood in the hallway, hands shaking slightly, thinking. I either just saved my integrity or destroyed my career. Possibly both. The deliberation took 90 minutes. Kyungmin sat in an empty conference room, phone off, staring at Seoul's skyline and thinking about every choice that had led to this moment. His phone buzzed. He'd turned it back on. Zahara. How did it go? Don't know yet. They're voting now. Whatever happens, you did the right thing. Did I? Or did I just blow up everything we built because I couldn't compartmentalize better? You did the right thing, Zahara repeated. I'm proud of you. Kyungmin felt something in his chest ease slightly. I love you. I love you too. Now go find out if we're unemployed. He smiled despite himself. The door opened. Director Kim. The board has reached a decision, he said. Kyungmin followed him back to the boardroom. Every director was present. Expressions were carefully neutral. Director Kim returned to his seat. CEO SEO, the board has voted 8-7 to approve the following measures. 8-7. Razor thin. First, immediate independent audit of all ethics and transformation committee decisions. Director Kim continued. Third-party firm, full transparency. Results public upon completion. Estimated timeline, 6 weeks. Kyungmin nodded. Agreed. Second, enhanced disclosure protocols for any executive relationships that could present appearance of conflict, Kim said. This applies board-wide, not just to your situation. We're institutionalizing relationship disclosure as governance best practice. Reasonable, Kyungmin said. Third, you remain as CEO during the audit period, contingent on findings, Kim concluded. If the audit identifies judgment compromises, you'll be asked to resign. If it vindicates committee decisions, the board will issue public statements supporting your leadership and the ethics reforms. Kyungmin felt something like relief mixed with continued tension. I understand. May I ask how individual directors voted? By secret ballot, Kim said. But I can tell you that the decision came down to one question. Do we trust performance or fear perception? 8 directors decided performance matters more. 7 disagreed. In CFO Park? Kyungmin asked, looking directly at Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon met his gaze steadily. I voted against the measures. For the record, I still believe the relationship creates unnecessary risk, but I will respect the board's decision and cooperate fully with the audit. Thank you for your honesty, Kyungmin said, meaning it. I hope the audit proves your concerns unfounded. So do I, Ji-hoon replied. And something in his expression suggested he might actually mean it. The meeting adjourned. Kyungmin walked to the elevator, rode down 40 floors, exited into Seoul's late afternoon chaos, and called Zahara. I'm still employed, he said when she answered. Conditionally. Conditionally is better than unemployed, Zahara replied. What are the conditions? He explained the vote, the audit, the 6-week timeline. When he finished, she was quiet. You okay? He asked. I'm thinking about 8-7, Zahara said slowly. 1 vote. 1 director deciding that performance matters more than appearance. That's how close we came to losing everything. But we didn't lose, Kyungmin pointed out. Not yet, Zahara corrected. We have 6 weeks for auditors to find something, anything, that looks like compromised judgment. 1 decision that prioritized personal feelings over corporate interests. 1 email that reads wrong out of context. That's a lot of time for things to go wrong. They won't find anything, Kyungmin said with certainty. Because we didn't do anything wrong. We fell in love. We also did our jobs correctly. Those things coexisted. I hope you're right, Zahara said. Because if you're not, We just staked both our careers on the belief that honesty is enough. And I'm not sure the world we live in actually rewards that. Then maybe we need to change the world, Kyungmin said. Zahara laughed, tired but genuine. One boardroom crisis at a time. Deal, he agreed. Where are you? Hotel room, hiding from reporters and preparing for tomorrow's Aurora board call, Zahara said. You? Standing on a Seoul street corner, realizing I have nowhere I need to be for the first time in 7 years, Kyungmin admitted. Want company? Boardroom rules, Zahara reminded him gently. We're under audit scrutiny. Probably shouldn't be seen together outside committee contexts. Right, Kyungmin said, disappointed but understanding. 6 weeks of appropriate corporate distance. 6 weeks, Zahara confirmed. And then, assuming we survive this, maybe we figure out what a relationship looks like when we're not constantly in crisis mode. I'd like that, Kyungmin said softly. I love you. I love you too, Zahara replied. Now go home. Rest. We have a long 6 weeks ahead. The call ended. Kyungmin stood on the street corner for another moment, watching Seoul move around him. Millions of people living their lives, completely unaware that his entire world had just been voted on by 15 directors and survived by a single vote. Then he went home and waited for the audit that would determine whether honesty had been brave or merely reckless. The Aurora Board's final decision came 3 days later. Catherine Morrison delivered it personally, flying to Seoul for a face-to-face meeting Zahara knew was either very good or catastrophically bad. They met in Zahara's hotel suite. Catherine declined tea, sat with the posture of someone delivering a verdict. The board voted 6-6, Catherine said without preamble, which means my vote as chair became tiebreaker. Zahara's heart stopped. And I'm furious with you, Catherine said. Not because you fell in love. Not because you took a professional risk, but because you didn't tell me. Zahara, I've mentored you for 8 years. I defended your strategies when other board members questioned them. I backed every unconventional decision you made building Aurora. And you didn't trust me enough to give me a heads up before international media turned this into a circus. Zahara felt shame. Genuine, uncomfortable. You're right. I should have told you. Why didn't you? Catherine asked. Because I was afraid, Zahara admitted. Afraid you'd tell me to end it. Afraid you'd question my judgment. Afraid of disappointing the one person whose respect I value more than anyone else's professional opinion. Catherine's expression softened slightly. And instead you let me find out from Bloomberg, along with everyone else. Yes, Zahara said quietly, which was cowardice disguised as pragmatism. I'm sorry. Catherine was silent for a long moment. The board wants you to take a 6-month sabbatical, step back from active management during the Helixon audit. Marcus would handle day-to-day operations. You'd return once the controversy settles. That's a polite way of saying they want me gone, but don't want the liability of firing me, Zahara said. Yes, Catherine agreed. It is. What do you want? Zahara asked. Catherine leaned forward. I want to know if you compromised Aurora's interests, not what the audit will say. Not what the documentation shows. What you actually believe, in your gut. Did falling in love with Kyungmin Soh affect your professional judgment? Zahara met her mentor's eyes. Yes. Catherine's expression hardened. Explain. It made me more rigorous, Zahara said. Every decision became higher stakes because I knew perception of bias would destroy credibility. So I documented beyond normal requirements. I invited Marcus to review materials I'd usually handle independently. I structured every recommendation to be defensible by someone who'd never met me. The relationship didn't make me careless. It made me hypervigilant about proving I wasn't. That's what you told the board, Catherine said. I'm asking what you didn't tell them. Zahara took a breath. The relationship also made me care more. Not about Helixon's profit margins. About the work actually meaning something. About 17 people in Nairobi becoming real instead of just statistics. About building something that proved ethics and capitalism aren't mutually exclusive. Kyungmin made me remember why I started Aurora, not to manage portfolios, to change systems. If that's compromised judgment, then I'm guilty. But I'd make the same choices again. Catherine studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "Good," she said. "Good," Zahara repeated, confused. "I told the board I wouldn't cast my vote until I heard you answer that question honestly," Catherine explained. "Half of them wanted contrition. Wanted you to say the relationship was a mistake you regretted. If you'd said that, I would have voted for the sabbatical. Because Aurora isn't built on regret. It's built on conviction." Zahara felt tears threatening. "Catherine, but you didn't say that," Catherine continued. "You said it made you care more. Made you remember why the work matters. That's not compromised judgment. That's renewed purpose. And Aurora needs that more than it needs comfortable board members." "So, I'm not on sabbatical?" Zahara asked carefully. "You're on notice," Catherine corrected. "The audit stands. If it finds problems, you're done. But if it vindicates your work, you're staying. With conditions." "What conditions?" Zahara asked. "First, you tell me when you're taking major risks," Catherine said firmly. "Personal or professional. I can't support you if I don't know what's happening. Second, you implement the same relationship disclosure protocols Helixon's adopting. Aurora should lead on governance standards, not follow. Third, you write a memo to the full board explaining your decision-making philosophy, not an apology. An explanation of why you believe personal authenticity and professional excellence can coexist. Make them understand or make them leave." Zahara felt something like hope. "I can do that." "I know you can," Catherine said. "That's why I voted to keep you. Aurora isn't like other funds, Zahara. We don't succeed by being safe. We succeed by being right when everyone else is comfortable. You reminded me of that today. Don't make me regret it." "I won't," Zahara promised. Catherine stood. "One more thing." "Yes?" "This CO," Catherine said. "He worth all this drama?" Zahara didn't hesitate. "Yes, absolutely yes." Catherine smiled. "Then I hope the audit proves you right. Because if it does, you'll have demonstrated something the industry desperately needs to learn, that the best leaders are fully human, not perfectly isolated." She left. Zahara sat alone in her hotel room, hands shaking with relief and residual fear. Then she texted Kyungmin. "Still employed, conditionally. You?" His response came immediately. "Same. 6 weeks of terror. Want to be terrified together?" "Boardroom rules," Zahara reminded him. "Appropriate corporate distance." "Right. Forgot. Miss you already." "Miss you too. But we made it through today. That counts for something." "It counts for everything," Kyungmin replied. 6 weeks. Then we figure out what normal looks like. If we remember how, Zahara typed back. "We'll learn together," he sent. "I love you." "I love you too," Zahara confirmed. "Now let's survive this audit." 6 weeks felt like 6 years. The auditors, Ernst & Young, reputation impeccable, approach merciless, reviewed every committee decision, email, meeting minute, and documented recommendation. They interviewed Zahara and Kyungmin separately, together, with colleagues present. They examined financial models, pricing strategies, supply chain modifications. They traced decision-making processes back to initial data inputs, and they found nothing. Not because there was nothing to find. There were hundreds of decisions, thousands of documented discussions, but because every single one was justified by ethical framework and financial logic independent of personal relationship. The audit report was delivered simultaneously to Helixon's board and Aurora's board on a gray London morning. Executive summary. Committee decisions demonstrate exceptional rigor, transparency, and adherence to corporate governance best practices. No evidence of compromised judgment or prioritization of personal interests over fiduciary responsibilities. relationship disclosure protocols were inadequate, but decision-making integrity is beyond reproach. Recommend public statement, supporting leadership and institutionalizing relationship disclosure standards industry-wide. Zahara read it 3 times, unable to quite believe. Her phone rang. Kyungmin. "Did you?" she started. "Yes," he said. "We won." "We didn't win," Zahara corrected, laughing through tears she hadn't realized were falling. "We just didn't lose." "Same thing," Kyungmin insisted. They audited everything, 6 weeks of forensic examination, and they found that we did exactly what we said. Fell in love while doing our jobs correctly. That's not luck. That's integrity. It's terrifying how close we came, Zahara admitted. 8-7 vote, 6-6 with a tiebreaker. 1 decision away from losing everything. "But we didn't lose," Kyungmin repeated, "and now we get to prove that this wasn't some exception, that it's actually possible to be excellent and human simultaneously." "Assuming the boards issue supporting statements," Zahara pointed out. "Assuming media accepts the audit findings. Assuming we stop being terrified long enough to celebrate," Kyungmin interrupted gently. "Where are you?" "London, Aurora headquarters. Staring at an audit report that just saved my career." Zahara looked out her office window at the Thames below. "You?" "Seoul. Empty boardroom. About to face directors who bet against me." He paused. "I wish you were here." 6 more hours, Zahara said. "I have a flight at 3 p.m. By tonight, we're in the same city. No audit, no crisis, just us." "Just us," Kyungmin repeated. "I don't think we've ever had that." "Then it's time we figured out what it looks like," Zahara said softly. "I love you." "I love you too," Kyungmin replied. "See you tonight." The call ended. Zahara sat in her office, looking at the audit report, thinking about 17 people in Nairobi who were alive because 2 leaders had been brave enough to admit they didn't have all the answers. Thinking about systems that slowly, painfully changed when people insisted on being both competent and human. Thinking, we did it. We actually did it. The joint board statement was released at noon. GMT, Helixon Group and Aurora Ethics Capital, Joint Statement on Governance Review. Following comprehensive independent audit by Ernst & Young, both organizations affirm that CEO Seo Kyungmin and Director Zahara Price maintained exceptional professional standards throughout their collaborative work. The Ethics and Transformation Committee's decisions are validated as rigorous, transparent, and in full compliance with fiduciary responsibilities. Both organizations acknowledge that relationship disclosure protocols were inadequate and are implementing enhanced governance standards. We affirm that personal relationships, when properly disclosed and managed, do not automatically constitute conflicts of interest. Professional excellence and personal authenticity can coexist with appropriate oversight. Helixon and Aurora commit to leading industry standards on transparency, accountability, and ethical governance. We thank CEO Seo and Director Price for their integrity throughout this process and their continued leadership in corporate transformation. The statement hit financial media like a bomb. Financial Times. In unprecedented move, major firms defend executive relationship. Bloomberg. Helixon Aurora audit validates ethics, first approach to corporate governance. Korea Economic Daily. SEO Kyungmin survives scandal, emerges stronger. Wall Street Journal. Can love and leadership coexist? 2 global executives just proved it. Can. By evening, Zahara was on a flight to Seoul. By midnight, she was in Kyungmin's apartment, the real one, not the sterile hotel rooms they'd been confined to for 2 months. They sat on his couch, not touching yet, just processing. "It's over," Zahara said. "Actually over." "The audit is over," Kyungmin corrected. "The work continues. We still have pricing reforms to implement, supply chains to restructure, systems to change." "I meant the crisis," Zahara clarified. "The part where we didn't know if we'd survive." "Oh," Kyungmin said. "That." He finally moved closer, pulled her against him. Yeah, that's over. They sat like that for a long time. No words, just breathing together. Finally, Zahara said, "Brutal honesty?" "Always," Kyungmin confirmed. "I'm terrified this is the calm before another storm," Zahara admitted. "That we barely survived this crisis and there's another one waiting. That we used up all our luck proving integrity matters." Kyungmin was quiet for a moment. "What if there is another crisis?" "Then we face it," Zahara said. "Like we faced this one. Together." "Together," Kyungmin agreed. "But Z, I think we're going to be okay. Not because crises won't come, but because we know now that we can survive them without sacrificing who we are. That's not luck. That's foundation." Zahara turned to look at him. "When did you become an optimist?" "About 30 seconds after reading an audit report that validated everything we believed," Kyungmin said, smiling. "Turns out being right is excellent for morale." Zahara laughed. "We were right. That's still surreal." "We were right," he confirmed. "And now we get to keep being right. Building ethical companies, changing systems, saving lives. Except this time, we don't have to hide. We can just do the work and love each other, and trust that competence speaks louder than scandal." "That's a nice theory," Zahara said. "Let's test it." "Deal," Kyungmin agreed. Then quieter. "Stay tonight." "I was planning on it," Zahara replied. "Boardroom rules are officially suspended until tomorrow morning." "Just tonight?" Kyungmin asked. "We'll figure out the new normal," Zahara said. "Bedroom honesty, boardroom professionalism, somehow balanced without driving ourselves insane. But tonight, we just get to be relieved we survived." "I can work with that," Kyungmin said. They fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, exhausted and victorious, and still slightly disbelieving, and woke 6 hours later to Seoul sunrise painting the city gold. "Morning," Kyungmin murmured. "Morning," Zahara replied. "We're really doing this." "What? Dating while running global companies?" "Yeah," Zahara confirmed. "That." "Yes," Kyungmin said simply. "We're really doing this. And it's going to be complicated and difficult and probably terrifying sometimes. But it's also going to be worth it." "Promise?" Zahara asked. "Promise," he confirmed. "Now get up. We have board meetings, pricing reviews, supply chain negotiations, lives to save." "Romantic," Zahara deadpanned. "I'll take you to dinner tonight," Kyungmin offered. "Somewhere with terrible coffee and absolute privacy." "Now you're talking," Zahara agreed. They got ready for work separately, professionally, maintaining appropriate corporate boundaries. But before they left, Kyungmin caught her hand. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for fighting for this. For us. For believing we could be right when everyone said we were wrong." "Thank you for being worth fighting for," Zahara replied. "Now let's go change some systems." They left separately, professional protocol. But they left knowing something neither had been certain of 6 months ago. That love and leadership weren't mutually exclusive. That honesty, terrifying as it was, actually worked. That they'd built something real in the most impossible circumstances. And that tomorrow, and every day after, they'd keep building. Together. The Nairobi hospital looked different in afternoon sun. Zahara and Kyungmin stood in the same ward where they'd met Dr. Mbeki 18 months ago. But the atmosphere had transformed. New equipment, stocked medication shelves, patients receiving treatment they could afford. Mortality down 68%, Dr. Mbeki reported, walking them through updated statistics. Adherence rates up because patients can actually afford full treatment courses. We're seeing families stay intact because medical costs aren't bankrupting them. What's different? Zahara asked, though she knew. She wanted to hear it. Price, Dr. Mbeki said simply. Virexol now costs $40 per monthly treatment, not $400. That's the difference between death and life, between despair and hope. Kyungmin was quiet. Zahara slipped her hand into his. Thank you, Dr. Mbeki said, looking between them. For keeping your promise. For changing a system that everyone said couldn't change. For remembering Sarah Wanjiru and the others. We couldn't forget, Kyungmin said. They're why we're here. After the hospital visit, they had dinner at a small restaurant overlooking the city. No cameras, no board members. Just two people who'd fought for the right to exist fully. You know what's wild? Zahara said, watching Nairobi's lights spark to life. This almost didn't happen. We were one vote away from losing everything. If Director Kim's vote had gone the other way, if Catherine hadn't believed me, if the audit had found one email that looked wrong out of context. But it didn't, Kyungmin pointed out. And now 68% fewer people are dying. And Aurora is implementing relationship disclosure protocols across its entire portfolio. And Halixin is restructuring its entire ethics framework. All because we refused to believe that competence and connection were mutually exclusive. When you put it that way, Zahara admitted, it sounds almost heroic. It was heroic, Kyungmin said seriously. Not the grand gesture kind, the daily choice kind. Choosing honesty when lies were safer. Choosing integrity when performance was easier. Choosing each other when isolation was expected. That's the hardest kind of heroism. Zahara felt her throat tighten. I love you. I love you too, Kyungmin replied. And I have something to ask you. If it's about the Q4 pricing proposal, I already read the draft. It's not about work, Kyungmin interrupted. For once, this is just personal. He reached across the table, took both her hands. Move in with me, he said. In Seoul. We'll figure out the logistics. You travel, I travel, we make it work. But I'm tired of hotel rooms and video calls. I want to come home to you. I want to cook terrible dinners together and argue about nothing important and fall asleep knowing you're there. I want normal, whatever that looks like for us. Zahara stared at him. That's a big step. We survived an international scandal and simultaneous board crises, Kyungmin pointed out. I think we can handle cohabitation. What about your mother? Zahara asked. She was supportive during the crisis, but actually living together. She's been asking when you're coming for that dinner she promised, Kyungmin said. Traditional Korean meal. She wants to cook for you. Apparently she's decided you're exactly the kind of daughter-in-law who'll keep me honest. Daughter-in-law? Zahara repeated faintly. Too fast? Kyungmin asked, suddenly uncertain. No, Zahara said. Maybe too perfect. I spent 6 years building walls to protect myself. You dismantled every single one. And now you're offering normal when I've forgotten what that looks like. So that's a yes? Kyungmin pressed hopefully. Zahara laughed. That's a terrified yes. But yes. Kyungmin's face transformed. Pure joy. He stood, pulled her up, kissed her right there in the restaurant, like they weren't two globally recognized executives who'd just survived career-threatening scandal. When they broke apart, several other diners were applauding. We're causing a scene, Zahara murmured. Good, Kyungmin said. I'm done hiding, done performing. I love you. The whole world can know. The whole world already knows, Zahara pointed out. There were approximately 50 articles about us. Then one more scene won't hurt, Kyungmin decided. They left the restaurant hand in hand, walked Nairobi streets as the city settled into evening rhythm. Talked about logistics, her London apartment, his Seoul home, how to split time between continents. Talked about work, upcoming pricing reviews, new markets, systems still needing change. Talked about nothing important, favorite foods, books they'd both loved, the strange comfort of being known. And by the time they returned to their hotel, Zahara realized something had shifted. The crisis was truly over. Not because threats didn't exist. There would always be skeptical boards, challenging media, systems resistant to change, but because they'd proven to themselves that they could survive those threats without sacrificing who they were. That honesty, terrifying and costly as it was, actually worked. That love and leadership could coexist. That they'd found something rare, a partner who made them better at both. 1 year later, the boardroom was familiar territory now. Zahara and Kyungmin presented their annual Ethics and Transformation Committee review to a joint session of Helixon and Aurora boards. The numbers spoke for themselves. Mortality reduction, 71% across 18 African markets. Access expansion, 2. 4 million additional patients receiving affordable treatment. Helixon stock performance, up 28% year over year. Aurora fund returns, 34% outperforming market benchmarks. Industry adoption, 12 major pharmaceutical companies implementing similar pricing reforms. Questions? Kyungmin asked after the presentation concluded. Director Kim, now a vocal supporter, smiled. Just one. How does it feel to have been right when everyone said you were wrong? Zahara and Kyungmin exchanged glances. Exhausting, Zahara admitted. Vindicating, terrifying, worth every sleepless night. Would you do it again? Kim pressed. Without hesitation, Kyungmin said. The work matters more than comfort. Lives matter more than reputation. Truth matters more than perfection. And each other? Another director asked. Does that matter more than everything else? Zahara smiled. Each other is why everything else works. We make each other braver, more rigorous, more willing to fight for what's right even when it's hard. That's not a distraction from leadership. That's what makes leadership sustainable. The board session concluded with unanimous approval of the committee's continued work. After, as executives filed out, Park Ji-hoon approached. CEO Seo, Director Price, he said formally. I owe you both an apology. Zahara raised an eyebrow. For doubting your integrity, Ji-hoon said. For attempting to weaponize your relationship against you. I was wrong. About your judgment. About whether personal and professional excellence could coexist. The results prove I was wrong. Apology accepted, Kyungmin said. And Ji-hoon? Thank you for eventually supporting the reforms. Your financial modeling made the expansion to new markets possible. Ji-hoon nodded. Perhaps I'm learning that profit and principles aren't mutually exclusive. Slowly, painfully, but learning. He left. Zahara looked at Kyungmin. Did that just happen? Redemption arc, Kyungmin confirmed. Everyone gets one. They walked out together. No longer hiding, no longer performing, just existing as the complicated, brilliant, fully human leaders they'd fought to become. In the car back to their shared apartment, Zahara's phone buzzed. Catherine Morrison. Proud of you. The message read. You changed an industry. Don't stop now. Zahara showed Kyungmin. She's right, he said. What's next? Next we keep going, Zahara replied. More companies, more markets, more lives saved, more proof that doing the right thing is actually possible. Together? Kyungmin asked. Always, Zahara confirmed. They drove through Seoul traffic, planning the next battle, the next reform, the next system that needed changing. But when they got home, their home, the apartment they'd furnished together with books and terrible art and evidence of 2 lives fully lived, they left work at the door, cooked dinner together, argued about nothing important, fell asleep tangled together knowing tomorrow would bring new challenges, new crises, new opportunities to prove that honesty mattered more than perfection. And somewhere in Nairobi, a teacher named Sarah's daughter, who'd lived because 2 leaders had been brave enough to change a system, went to school with the same textbooks her mother had once prioritized over medication. But this time, the choice wasn't necessary. This time, both were possible. Because 2 people 5,000 miles away had refused to believe that love and leadership, ethics and profit, humanity and excellence were